about to hear is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all king-size cigarettes, brings you Dragnet on both radio and television.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to juvenile division. A steady supply of obscene literature is finding its way into a half a dozen high schools in your city. You get a lead on one of the sources of supply, a 17-year-old high school senior. Your job, pick him up. Fatima, America's first largest-selling blended cigarette. Now, best of all king-size cigarettes.
Prove it yourself today. Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And in Fatima, you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Definitely the best quality in its class, but the same price as the cigarette you're now smoking.
Buy Fatima in the bright, sunny yellow pack. Best of all king-size cigarettes.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Wednesday, November 8th. It was windy in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of Juvenile Division. My partner's Ed Jacobs. The boss is Captain Stein. My name's Friday. It was 11:05 a.m. when we got to the basement floor of Gorman High School. The locker room.
Which way, Steve? You want to show us which locker's yours?
You still haven't told me what this is all about.
Routine check, son.
Yeah, but why do you have to pick on me? Why do you have to see my locker?
We're not picking on you, Steve. Now, how about it? Which locker's yours?
Right here. This is mine, 318. Here's the key.
No, you open it, Steve.
Just a couple of personal things of mine, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll open it. Well, there you are. See for yourself.
You want to take your things out of the locker, son?
You can see what's in there, can't you? My gym stuff, a couple of textbooks.
How about digging back in the corner, left-hand side there?
Where?
You know where I mean. Come on, Steve, dig them out.
Back here, you mean? These joke books?
That's right. Let's have a look, huh?
Why? Just a couple of joke books. A kid gave them to me.
Bring them out, Steve.
Okay. Just a couple of them. Kid gave them to me. There.
Looks like more than a couple.
That's what you call a joke book, Steve?
That's what the kids call them, yeah. Some of them are a little dirty. Not so bad, though.
They're filthy, Steve, and you know it. Now, where'd you get them?
I told you. Kid gave them to me.
Who? What's his name?
Oh, some kid around school. I don't remember right now.
Gave you these books for nothing?
Sure. I had a couple he wanted. We traded off. A lot of the kids have them. They trade them around.
That stack you got there, they look pretty new. Couldn't have been passed around much.
Or maybe not. I don't know.
Matter of fact, they look brand new, don't they? Don't even look like they've been opened yet.
How come you're rousting me on this thing? What about the other kids? They got them, too.
They're buying them, Steve. They're not selling them.
I'm not selling them. Anybody says that's a liar.
No good, son. We talked to the fellows here at the high school. Some kids over at the junior high school, too. They all say you're the one who's selling them.
Well, they're liars.
Both the fellows in high school and the kids down the street in junior high. They say you've been selling this stuff for months. Now, how about it?
They're lying, that's all. They don't know what they're talking about.
You've been selling these 35 cents a piece, 3 for $1. Last couple of weeks, you've been peddling pictures, too, $1 a piece. You got any of them in your locker, Steve?
A couple. I got them off another kid.
What other kid? What's his name? What's his name?
Some kid. I don't remember.
It's not much of an answer, son.
What do you want from me anyway? I told you I'm not selling the books. I don't care what those other goofs say. It's my word against theirs.
Now, maybe you ought to get this straight, son. We're not out to get you. You're way down the line. We want the people at the top, the men who print this junk, the wholesalers, the big distributors.
So why ask me? I don't know anything about it. Nothing.
You don't want to cooperate, is that it?
What am I supposed to cooperate about? I'm not mixed up in anything.
We think you are, son. We know you are. Who are you selling this for? Where do you get your supply?
All you see is what's in my locker. I ain't selling. I don't have any supply. You got to go far to prove I have.
Not very far, Steve.
What?
From about here to your home. 11:38 a.m. After picking up his supply of obscene books and photographs to be booked later as evidence, Ed and I drove the subject, Stephen Banner, to his home approximately a mile from the high school. His apprehension and our theory that he probably kept the bulk of his supply of books and pictures at or near his home was no accident. For weeks, we'd known that a steady stream of pornography was being fed into a half a dozen high schools and junior high schools throughout the city. Books, photographs, pictures, and pamphlets of the worst kind. Because of embarrassment on the part of the curious teenage kids who bought this stuff, it wasn't easy to pick up a solid lead. After weeks of observation and questioning, we finally narrowed down the principal source of supply to a single teenage boy, Stephen Banner. Even then, we knew he must be only one of 100 small-time distributors working for the persons directly responsible for manufacturing this sort of thing. Our only hope was that he'd be willing and able to supply us with the names of the persons responsible. When we got to Stephen Banner's home, where he lived with his sister and brother-in-law, we searched it thoroughly, but we found nothing. Both his sister and brother-in-law were at work. We went back and started checking through the garage at the rear of the house.
Joe, back here in the corner?
Yeah.
Have a look. Steve, you want to tell us about this?
Yeah.
These books here? These pictures, case full of them?
Yeah.
Well, how about it, son? Your sister and brother-in-law know about this?
No, they don't know anything. I didn't think you'd find them.
Are you ready to tell us about it?
My sister going to have to find out?
I don't know, Steve. It's going to be pretty hard to keep it from her.
Yeah, I guess so.
Who's the contact, son? Where'd they come from?
Charlie Freiberg. Only the books, though. Pictures came from another guy. It's a long story.
We got the time, son. Who is this Freiberg?
Met him downtown one Sunday, Penny Arcade on Broadway. Me and this other kid were in there, Bud Spencer. Freiberg came up, started to talk to us.
All right, go on.
He finally took a couple of these books out of his pocket, gave them to us. He wanted to know what we thought of them. Told us he had plenty of them if we knew any other kids who wanted them.
You knew you and your friend Bud were in high school?
Yeah, that's right.
What else, Steve?
Well, that's about it. He asked me and Bud if we wanted to sell for him around school.
This friend of yours, Bud Spencer, he's selling them too?
Yeah. He goes to a different school, though. Both of us did pretty good with the books, sold real fast. The pictures were even better.
That's so. You say you didn't get the pictures from Freiberg. There was somebody else?
A man by the name of Jack. I don't know his last name. Freiberg put us onto him, gave us an introduction, set up the deal. We got the pictures for 75 cents. Most of the time, they get us $1.50 a piece. Bud and I did pretty good.
Do you know any other fellows working for this Freiberg, Steve? Any other kids in school, I mean?
No, just Bud and me. That's all I know. It wouldn't be so bad if it was just the books. That lousy Charlie. He had to go and promote the party routine, get everybody mixed up in that.
How do you mean? What's that all about?
Charlie. He stays at this place out on Sepulveda. It's a motel. That's where we always contacted him.
Yeah.
After a couple of weeks, when we got to know him, he asked me and Bud out to this place. Said he was going to throw a party. Told us to bring our girlfriends along. Turned out we were the only ones at the party. Me and Bud and the girls and Charlie Freiberg. Party lasted pretty late. I should have been smart enough to figure it out. I wasn't.
What do you mean, Steve? Figure out what?
Why'd Charlie be throwing parties just for us? The first 2 times there wasn't anything wrong. We just talked, danced with the girls, drank some beer. Charlie told us to have a good time. He threw a party every Friday night. Never broke up till after 3 o'clock.
How old are your girlfriends, yours and Bud's?
17. They're both 17. They've been around, though. No use kidding you. They weren't very smart, I can tell you that. None of us were, I guess. Next couple of parties, Charlie had whiskey there. Dumb girls drank right along with him. So did we.
Freiberg served the whiskey, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. He loaded the drinks, kept handing the girls a lot of stuff about how he used to be a director in pictures. He had a lot of connections in Hollywood. The last party I was at, he said he was going to get the girls' screen test. A lot of malarkey like that.
Mm-hmm. What else, Steve?
I don't know. I had a beef with Charlie about it, and I walked out. I haven't been back since.
Does he still throw these Friday night parties, do you know?
Maybe. I don't know. There were 3 or 4 after the last one I walked out on. Dumb girls think Charlie's just great. God, so I can't stand the guy.
How about the parties you didn't show up for, Steve? You get a rundown on them?
Well, I heard a couple of things, yeah. Sure glad I wasn't there.
How do you mean?
Dumb girls never fails. The oldest line in the world. They still go for it.
What's that?
Tell them you're going to get them in the movies.
We continued questioning the subject, 17-year-old Stephen Banner. He gave us a full description of the man who'd been selling him the books, Charles Freiberg, and also a description of the man known as Jack, the one who'd been supplying him with pictures and photographs. In addition, he gave us the addresses of the two men, a fair description of Freiberg's car, no license number, and the names and addresses of the two girls he and his friend had taken to Freiberg's parties. 1:20 p.m. Ed and I took the case of obscene books from the garage, loaded it in the back seat of our car, and Stephen Banner directed us to the high school attended by his friend Bud Spencer. We picked up the Spencer boy and drove him and Banner downtown to Georgia Street Juvenile, where we booked them in on 700B, Welfare and Institution Code, lack of supervision. We drove to the motel out on Sepulveda, but the suspect, Charles Freiberg, had moved out 5 days before, no forwarding address. It wasn't a dead end, though. From his motel registration card, we got the description and license number of his car. On the way into the office, we checked out the address of his confederate, the man known as Jack. He'd moved the same day as Freiberg, no forwarding address. Back at the office, DMV got a make on the license number for us. The car registered in Freiberg's name, 239 West 92nd Street. We went down to R&I and pulled the package on the suspect, 3:40 p.m.
Last address on was 3 years old. How's his record read?
Well, he's been in the business before. A couple of ag charges, a 311 charge, too. Possession of obscene literature.
Served 8 months in county jail. Mugshot there?
Yeah, here.
Mm-hmm. Close enough to the way the boy described him.
I'd say so. There's M.O., too.
Huh?
Same pitch the last time they got him, working the high school trade. Passed himself off as a studio man, movie director.
How about the other man, Jack? You got anything there?
No, not yet. I gave the information on him to the stats office. They're going to make a run for us. Well, I guess we better check on the kids' girlfriends, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Get their stories.
Yeah, I suppose so. It sure gets me, Joe.
What's that?
Very young girls like that, out at motel parties till 3 a.m. drinking.
Yeah.
17-year-olds, no reason for it, no reason at all.
Well, I can think of one that might do.
Yeah?
Their parents. We checked out the suspect's address furnished us by DMV and also the information from the R&I package. They went nowhere. We had a second interview with Stephen Banner and his friend Bud Spencer. We showed them Freiberg's mugshot, and both of them identified it. We got out a broadcast and an APB on him. 4:12 p.m. Together with policewoman Doreen Statesel, Ed and I drove out to interview the two teenage girls involved, a Dorothy Ryan and a Laura Osborne. We stopped at the home of the Osborne girl first, but she wasn't there, and neither were her parents. An older sister told us that both the mother and father were working and that Laura was at a neighborhood school for models taking her weekly lesson. We checked at the modeling school, a converted second-floor social hall, where we finally located the girl, a tall brunette, dark eyes, fair complexion. The heavy makeup didn't do much to hide her age. While the modeling lesson went on, policewoman Statesel, Ed, and I talked to the girl off in one corner of the hall.
Your friend, Steve Banner, he took you to those parties at Mr. Freiberg's place?
Uh-huh, that's right. Very nice man. He was always nice to Dorothy and me. Dorothy Ryan, she came to the parties with Bud. He's a friend of Steve Banner's.
You have no complaint to make about this, Mr. Freiberg? He never caused you trouble of any kind?
Charlie? Well, no. As I told you before, that business about Steve getting mad just because Charlie told us he'd get us in the movies. Well, it was silly, that's all. Plain silly. Charlie was just helping us.
How do you mean, Laura?
Well, he's in Hollywood, you know, Charlie Freiberg. He has lots of connections. He just wanted to help us get some good modeling jobs. That's why he took our pictures. There was nothing wrong.
You continued going to these Friday night parties without the two boys, is that right?
Yes, Dorothy and me. There wasn't anything wrong with it. We knew Charlie as well as they did by that time. A few bathing suit pictures, that's all. There was nothing wrong in that.
Did you ever see prints of any of those pictures, either you or Dorothy Ryan?
No, but Charlie's going to get us some. He promised he would.
You know where he is now?
No, he moved. I haven't any idea where he is.
When's the last time you saw Freiberg, miss?
About 10 days, 2 weeks ago. What's this all about, officer? You looking for Charlie?
How does he usually contact you, Laura? By phone?
Yeah, usually calls.
Has he called you lately?
Well, I don't know. Why are you looking for him? Can't you tell me?
Routine investigation, miss.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know where Charlie is. Why can't you tell me why you want him?
We want him.
Well, why? Can't you give me a reason?
This is one of the reasons, Laura. Would you look at this picture?
Charlie took this?
It's his business, Laura. That's the way his police record reads.
I can't believe it.
That's one reason we want Freiberg. There's lots of others. You willing to help us, Laura?
He said they'd be beautiful, glamorous. They're not.
You know where he stays now?
No, I'll find out, though.
How do you mean?
I've got a date with him. Supposed to meet him out on Wilshire and La Brea.
When's that?
8 o'clock tomorrow night.
You are listening to Dragnet, authentic stories of your police force in action. Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And in Fatima, you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
To show our confidence in Fatima, we make this money-back guarantee to every king-size cigarette smoker.
Buy a pack of Fatimas. Enjoy Fatima quality, extra mildness, and superbly blended tobaccos.
If you're not convinced Fatima is better than the king-size cigarette you're now smoking, just return the pack and the unsmoked Fatimas before August 1st, 1952, and we'll give you your money back plus postage. Fatima, Box 37, New York 1.
Remember, each king-size Fatima gives you an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Switch to Fatima today. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
November 8th, Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. After our interview with 17-year-old Laura Osborne, policewoman Doreen Statesel and I drove to the home of Laura's girlfriend, Dorothy Ryan, who was also present at the motel parties given by the suspect, Charles Freiberg. Her story of what had happened was essentially the same as the one we got from the Osborne girl. That night, we met with the parents of both girls. They were well-meaning and cooperative. They admitted their mistake. It was the same old story of lack of supervision and very little home life. The parents told us that they had no idea of what had been going on or the late hours that their teenage girls had been keeping. Besides promising closer supervision of the girls, they told us they would notify us immediately if the suspect, Freiberg, made any attempt to contact their daughters. 6:25 p.m. We got back to the office, put in a call to Stephen Banner's home, and notified his sister and brother-in-law that the boy was being held for further interrogation. We also notified the parents of Bud Spencer. The following morning, Ed and I went across the street to the district attorney's office, presented our case, and a warrant was issued on Charles Freiberg for 702 WIC, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. At 7 o'clock that night, Ed and I staked out on a cocktail lounge near the intersection of Wilshire and La Brea, the place where the suspect had told Laura Osborne to meet him. 7:30, 7:45. We waited.
Think maybe we're in business, Joe.
What?
Down the corner there, waiting for the signal to change. Dark suit, dark hat.
Yeah, could be.
Crossing over now, heading for the bar.
All right, let's go.
No mistake.
Hey, fella, hold it up on there, will you?
How's that?
Police officers, your name Freiberg?
What? No, that's not my name.
See your identification, please.
Yes, I've got my identification. Why?
Can we see it, please?
Why? What do you want?
Your identification.
What for? I haven't done anything.
Let's go, mister. Talk about it downtown.
Now, wait a minute. Just a minute. I don't want any trouble. I'll show you. There. Driver's license. The rest of my stuff.
Charles Freiberg. It's an old address, isn't it?
Yeah. Haven't had time to change it. Just got back in town. What's the matter, anyway?
Where are you staying, Freiberg?
No place. I just got back in town. I told you that. Not staying any place yet. No connections at all.
Where's your car?
I don't have one. Haven't had one for a year. I sold it. Look, how about filling me in? What do you want with me?
You want to step over here, Freiberg, out of the way?
All right. Just like to know what's going on, that's all.
I'd like to see what you're carrying in your pockets. Take everything out, please, one pocket at a time.
What is this, a shakedown?
You can start with your coat pockets.
All right. There. Okay?
All right, now the other one.
Okay?
You said you don't have a car, Freiberg.
No, of course not. I told you that.
Well, what are you doing with that parking ticket? We walked the suspect Freiberg 2 blocks to the parking lot listed on the claim check that he had in his coat pocket. He had black hair streaked with gray, looked to be in his mid-50s. We questioned him on the way, but he'd admit nothing. We located his car in the parking lot and searched it. In the glove compartment, besides a half a dozen photographs and small books, we found a key with a metal disc attached to it. Stamped on the disc were the words West Side Studios, number 23. Freiberg refused to identify the key. He refused to admit a thing. We walked him back to our car, and together the three of us headed out for the old West Side Studios just off Jefferson Boulevard. On the way, we tried again to question the suspect, but we got nowhere. He refused to answer even the simplest questions. One look at the West Side Studios, and you knew right away the place had seen better days. It had been fairly prominent in the early days of motion picture making, but all that was left now was 2 square blocks of broken-down scenery, 1 dilapidated sound stage, and a row of weather-beaten cottages, the tar paper peeling off the roofs. We got out of the car and started up the walk. The faded sign over the main gate read West Side Studios, founded 1920. And down in one corner, admission by pass only. The guard shack at the gate was boarded up. No sign of a night watchman. We kept walking.
How come they don't keep a watchman at the gate, Freiberg? Don't they make pictures here anymore?
You bet they do. The place has been going downhill for a long time. It's coming back, though.
Then you do know the place, is that right?
Yeah, I know it. I should know it.
What do you mean by that?
Nothing.
You rent an office here, is that it? Freiberg?
Yeah, that's right. Straight down the way there, Cottage 23.
What's your job? You in some kind of movie work?
Yeah, I have been for 30 years. More than 30 years.
That's so? You an actor?
Freiberg. Haven't you ever heard the name? I'm a producer.
Oh, I see.
Why don't you tell us that to start with?
Oh, I don't know. Different reasons. I don't like to throw my weight around. I have a lot of connections in Hollywood, you know.
That's so.
In the trade 30 years. I was one of the first. You can make a lot of friends in 30 years.
Yeah, I guess so. How about those books we found in your car, those pictures? How do you explain them?
This studio will be back on its feet in a year. I'll bet $1,000 on it. This whole block here, sound stages. I got the plans for 'em in my desk.
That's so. You have an interest in this lot?
Not exactly. Not right now, anyway. I did have an interest, though. I will again. I was one of the original owners, you know.
Still haven't got an explanation. How about the books and pictures we found in your car?
Oh, that? Nothing to explain, is there? Just a few gimmicks I picked up.
You know a boy by the name of Stephen Banner?
Banner? No, I don't think so. Why?
How about Bud Spencer? You know him?
No. I knew a George Spencer once. Actor. That was back in the old days, though.
How about Laura Osborne, Dorothy Ryan? You know them?
No, it's pretty hard to say. You know, Sergeant, over the years in this business, especially, you meet an awful lot of people.
Well, these are fairly recent. You ought to remember them. They're just kids, 17-year-olds.
No, afraid I don't recall the names. Soundstage Bell. We got a company over there doing some shooting tonight. Television films. They make them too fast. Trade's not like it used to be. Quality, that's what we went after. It's gone now. It's all gone. West Side will do it again, though. You can bet on that. We're coming back.
Look, how about leveling, Freiberg? You know why we picked you up. You know why we're out here.
That's just it. I don't know why. Oh, say, look across the road. That's set over there. The old greenhouse there, it's a colonial mansion. Weather's faded the colors a little. Typical old southern estate now, you know. We shot some beautiful footage there. Picture's a classic in its own right. Maybe you remember it. Moonlight and Magnolias. They changed the title later. Love in the Moonlight. Beautiful thing. You ever see it?
No, I don't think so.
I couldn't tell you how many beauties we turned out that year. I was a young fella then. Song and strife, moonlight and magnolias, little orphan girl, sweetheart to campus.
That's your cottage there, Mr. Freiberg?
What's that?
Just on the way there, number 23.
Oh, yeah. Completely forgot about it. I hope you'll excuse the way it looks. I haven't been able to find good accommodations in town. I've been staying at the office. We have a little couch there. I sleep on that. We have a hot plate, too. Good enough to boil the coffee in the morning.
Mm-hmm. How come you couldn't find space in town? The hotels aren't that rushed, are they?
Well, the ones I'm used to staying at, yes. I'd just soon camp here at the studio than stay at one of those places downtown. Say, wouldn't you like to see the rest of the lot? Pretty interesting if you've never seen a real movie lot. I mean, a high-class one.
We've seen them, Mr. Freiberg. We'd like to check your office.
Oh, all right. This is it. Cottages need a good coat of paint, of course. It'll all be done pretty soon. West Side's going to come back strong. You can bet on that.
Yeah, I guess so.
Uh-oh. Watch it on that first step there. It's loose. Have to call maintenance and get that fixed.
Yeah, it's all right.
Here we are. Well, Well, as you can see, the office isn't very much. What is it you wanted, gentlemen?
You want to check that cabinet there, Ed? I'll take a look through these cases over here.
Okay.
This picture here on the wall. That's the cast and the production staff of my first film. Here's the other one. Me and R.Z. Bernard. He autographed the picture for me, Bernard himself. Those were the days, all right. Quality. That's what we went after in pictures, real quality. Not like today. Gone. The good days. Fine pictures. It's gone. All gone.
How about it, Freiberg? These cases of books here and these photographs.
Not my fault, believe me. I had to make a living. I had to make money. How do you think it feels to get cheap like that? I used to be young. I was big. I was talent. I made big pictures. How do you think it feels to get cheap all of a sudden? Cheap enough to do this kind of thing?
Nobody forced you. It was your choice, mister.
It wasn't my choice. You're wrong. All I want to do is make pictures. There isn't a chance anymore, not like the old days. You need hundreds of thousands, millions. It's gone. It's all gone. I had to eat. I had to put clothes on my back.
You admit you're responsible for this? Books, pictures? You're working in the high school trade, kids like Steve Banner, Bud Spencer?
After 1935, I couldn't get a job. I didn't want this. I had to do it. I'm ashamed. Who wouldn't be? I had to eat. It was the only way. I had to live.
There's honest jobs to be had. How about this man named Jack?
He was in with me. He was my cameraman back in the old days. You can't blame him either. He had to live, too.
You willing to come downtown with us? Give us a statement?
Yes, all right. All right, anything.
How about the parties, the two girls, Laura Osborne, Dorothy Ryan?
I took some pictures, that's all. I didn't harm them. Not in any way.
You had it wrong, Freiberg. You know that.
Yeah, I know. But just to have the kids there, they made you remember the days in your life. Best days in anybody's life.
That's so?
When you used to have money. When you used to be young.
The story you have just heard was true. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
On January 29th, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 87, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
And now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you, George Fenneman. Friends, won't you do this for me? Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette. You'll find Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection. Cools the smoke for your protection. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size. And you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality. That's why I'd like you to buy Fatima.
The suspects, Charles Zeman Freiberg and his accomplice, Jack L. Lavery, were tried and convicted on 4 counts of contributing to the delinquency of minors. Both of them served full terms in the county jail. Contributing to the delinquency of minors is punishable by a fine of not more than $1,000 or by imprisonment in the county jail for 1 year, or by both fines. You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department. Heard tonight were Barney Phillips, Virginia Gregg, and Ralph Moody. Script by Jim Moser. Music by Walter Schumann. Hal Gibney speaking.
Fatima Cigarettes. Best of all king-size cigarettes has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles. Now it's Counter Spy on NBC. The story you are about to hear is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima Cigarettes. Best of all king-size cigarettes brings you Dragnet on both radio and television.
Your You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned a homicide detail. A 39-year-old housewife disappears suddenly. There's no explanation for it. 5 days later, evidence of possible foul play is uncovered. Your job, investigate. Fatima, America's first largest-selling blended cigarette. Now, best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Prove it yourself today. Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And in Fatima, you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Definitely the best quality in its class, but the same price as the cigarette you're now smoking.
Buy Fatima in the bright, sunny yellow pack. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Wednesday, September 15th. It was hot in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of homicide. My partner's Ed Jacobs. The boss is Thad Brown, chief of detectives. My name's Friday. I was on the way back from lunch, and it was 12:56 p.m. when I got to room 42. Homicide.
Hi, Joe. Waiting for you.
Hi, Ed. Al, here you got something for us, huh?
Mm-hmm. Here's the report right here. Gardener by the name of Abbott called in day before yesterday. Chester Abbott said his wife disappeared from their home out in the valley Thursday night. He says he thinks she left him.
Well, it happens every day.
Not this way, it doesn't. Walsh and I went out to talk to the man yesterday. His story doesn't make too much sense.
How do you mean, Al?
None of his wife's clothes are missing, none of her luggage. She even left her pocketbook behind, full of money. We found out from the neighbors the missing woman has a 17-year-old boy by a former marriage.
Does that mean anything?
He's an only child. Mother dotes on the kid. She didn't even say goodbye to him.
Well, how'd this Chester Abbott impress you?
Pretty grouchy with Walsh and me. No cooperation.
Wants to find his wife, doesn't he?
I don't know. I'm not sure. He's no help, I can tell you that much.
Could I see that report, Al?
Yeah, here you.
Thank you. Florence Trumbull Abbott, age 39.
Abbott's her second husband. First one died a little after the boy was born.
Mm-hmm. Disappeared Thursday night from the home, 546 Belasco Road, between 7 and 8 o'clock. Well, when did Abbott call in to notify you?
Monday afternoon. Told us he thought his wife might have been spending the weekend with her sister. When he found out she wasn't, he called us.
Mm-hmm. You meet the boy when you were out there?
Yeah, that's another thing.
How do you mean?
The kid came riding up on a bike when we were talking to one of the neighbors. We tried to talk to him, but the old man came out and hustled the boy into the house. Then he started chewing us out.
Well, what's his trouble?
He told us it was our job to find his wife, not to go prying into his stepson's affairs.
That's a new slant.
Well, how about the woman's friends and relatives? They've been checked out yet, Al?
Walsh is on it now. Don't think he's had much luck contacting him so far. I'll tell you the truth, I don't like the looks of it.
Mm. Mrs. Abbott have any other relatives here? I mean, besides the sister and 2 aunts?
Yeah, I got the list right over here. Sure wish we had a chance to talk to that boy.
You notice anything else out of the way about Mr. Abbott, Al?
Well, I don't know. Here's that list, Joe.
Oh, thank you.
Abbott was upset, all right. I don't know, though. He didn't exactly strike me as reacting the way a normal man reacts when his wife's disappeared.
Well, how about a copy of this report? You got one to spare?
Yeah, sure. Just a minute.
Yeah.
Missing persons, Barghetti. That's right. This is Barghetti speaking. Who's that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. About what? All right, good. 4 o'clock? Fine. All right, son. Goodbye. Well, that was the boy I was telling you about, Mr. Abbott's stepson.
What do you want?
He wants to talk to us. Sounded worried.
About his mother?
He thinks something's happened to her.
In police work, missing persons detail is not a department separate in itself. It's organized as a part of homicide division. When the possibility of homicide arises in the course of handling a case, missing persons immediately turns the matter over to homicide officers for investigation. When we got the call from the Abbott boy, we automatically took over. According to Al Barghetti, the boy said he suspected his stepfather and he didn't want him to know of any meeting between him and police officers. At 3:15, Ed and I left the office and drove to the meeting place designated by the boy, the Dairyland Fountain and Coffee Shop near the corner of Fairfax and Hollywood Boulevard. We got there at 3:50 p.m. At 5:08, the Abbott boy still had not arrived. We waited another 15 minutes, and then we left and drove out to the valley and pulled up in front of the main gate to the Abbott nursery on Velasco Road. The house itself was set well back on the property, which covered about 5 acres of ground. The entire nursery was surrounded by a 6-foot chain-link fence, and it looked like every available foot of ground inside was planted with some kind of flower or shrub. Mr. Abbott met us at the gate. He had 3 full-grown mastiffs with him. He held them on a chain.
Yes, what do you want?
Police officers, you Chester Abbott?
That's right. What do you want?
Well, if you can get those dogs quiet for a moment, we'd like to ask you some questions.
Pretty busy now. Can you come back tomorrow?
No, it's important, Abbott. We'd like to talk to you now.
All right, if you have to. Yes, time. Get down there. You two, Joe. Quiet. I said quiet. All right. Now, what do you want?
Mind if we come inside, sir?
These watchdogs of mine are pretty vicious. We can talk here at the gate.
All right. We've been assigned to look into your wife's disappearance, Abbott. This is my partner, Sergeant Jacobs. My name's Friday.
Mm-hmm. Find out anything about my wife yet?
Nothing definite, no. Thought maybe you could help us. Mind telling us exactly what happened the night she disappeared?
What do you mean, what happened?
Well, when did you see her last? When did you first notice she was gone?
Well, we had dinner Thursday night about 7 o'clock, then I laid down for a nap. Florence went out on the front porch for some air. I woke up a little before 8 o'clock and went outside to look for her. She was gone.
No one saw her leave, Mr. Abbott?
Not that I know of. Maybe one of our neighbors. You can ask them. They seem to know everybody's business.
How about your stepson? Wasn't he home Thursday night?
Bruce? No, he went out to a show with some other kids.
When did he get back from the show, you remember?
About 10 o'clock, I think. Why?
Where's the boy now, Abbott?
Who are you looking for, my wife or stepson?
Both of them. Where is he?
Gone. I took him over to my sister's in Alhambra. He's been feeling bad since his mother disappeared. Figured the change would do him good.
Well, when did you take him over to your sister's?
This afternoon. What's that got to do with it?
I'd like to talk to him.
No, you can't. You won't allow it. The boy's too upset right now, and I can't allow it.
I'm afraid you're going to have to allow it, Abbott.
Listen, mister. You can get off this property right now if you're going to get fresh with me. No cops giving me any sass. Get down there, honey. Quiet.
Nobody's giving you sass. We want to talk to your stepson, that's all. He might be able to give us a lead on the whereabouts of your wife.
And I say you can't see the boy. You've been looking for Florence for a week, and you haven't found a thing. I'll get somebody else to look for her. It's my business anyway, nobody else's.
It's our business if anything happened to her.
What are you talking about?
You better get your coat, Abbott. I'd like to talk to you downtown.
Come through that gate, and I'll let these dogs go.
We'd hate to shoot them, mister.
What are you trying to prove, anyhow? What do I have to go downtown for?
I'll tell you when we get there. Now, get your coat. Chester Abbott turned, made his way up the path and into the house. A few minutes later, he came out, closed the gate behind him, and got into our car. On the way back downtown, he talked pleasantly about the weather, the nursery business, and his dogs. When we got to the office, we found out the reason for his sudden change in temperament. His lawyer was waiting for us at the door. We tried to interrogate Abbott, but the lawyer objected to just about every question we asked. It was hopeless, and we knew it, and so did the lawyer. We released Abbott, but not before we got the name and address of his sister in Alhambra, where the stepson, Bruce, was supposedly staying. After Abbott and his lawyer left, Ed and I signed out of the office and drove to Alhambra to check on the boy.
Forget he sure had this one pegged. Real sleeper.
Yeah. I'd like to know how the stepson missed that date with us this afternoon.
The boy called us from the house. Stepfather could have overheard him.
That's possible. Sister's house ought to be along this block, shouldn't it?
Let's see. 1408, 06. Yeah, there it is. Great Cottage, 1402.
Okay, let's pull up here, huh?
Right.
Nice looking place, well kept, huh?
Nice neighborhood. Wonder how the lot prices run out here.
I don't know. I'll get the bell.
Yes, what is it?
Police officers, ma'am. You Miss Abbott?
Yes, Helen Abbott. Why?
Well, we talked to your brother earlier today, Miss Abbott. He said he brought his stepson, Bruce, over here to stay a while. We'd like to see him if we could.
Bruce? Well, yes, he was here until about an hour and a half ago. I went to the store, and when I came back, he was gone.
You any idea where we can find him, Miss Abbott?
Well, I telephoned my brother Chester just before you came to the door. Bruce isn't there.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you mind if we came in and looked around, Miss Abbott? It won't take long.
Well, why? I told you Bruce isn't here. It's the truth. There's no reason to lie about it, is there?
Oh, no, ma'am. It's not that.
Well, then what is it? No reason for me to lie to you.
How about your brother? We went in and looked the house over from one end to the other. There wasn't a trace of the boy. We drove back to the Abbott nursery and satisfied ourselves the boy wasn't there. Meantime, the home of Chester Abbott's sister in Alhambra was kept under constant surveillance. No one came or went. The next morning, when Ed and I checked in for work as usual at 8 a.m., we met with Sergeant Al Barghetti.
Well, I had half an idea there might be something wrong. What makes you so positive, though?
That's just it, Al. We're not positive. It's the whole setup, I guess. Smells bad.
How do you mean, for instance?
Well, Abbott's lawyer, for one thing. If a man's innocent, he doesn't have his lawyer sit with him and tell him not to answer any questions.
Yeah?
Number two, the kid's phone call. He didn't show up for that date. You figure.
I don't know. Could be he doesn't get along with his stepfather. Happens, you know. Maybe he's trying to get back at him for something or other.
Yeah, that could be. Why is Abbott hiding him out then?
Pretty sure he's hiding them off?
The way things been going, no other way to take it.
Mrs. Abbott walked away from her home last Thursday night. Nobody saw her. She took nothing with her. No luggage, no clothes, no money.
That's it.
You checked with her family doctor?
Yesterday, told us Mrs. Abbott was in perfect health. Checked her bank statements, double-checked the name through Wanderer's file. Repeaters found, missing persons. Couldn't find it in either one.
Her relatives, too. How you talked to them?
Some of them, yeah, Al. Got a few more to check out this morning.
Well, one thing's certain. No clothes, no money, no luggage. She couldn't have gone very far. You checked all the angles, huh?
The sheriff's office, the jails, the hospitals. Sent out a teletype and an APB. She's been gone almost a week, and nobody's seen her. Now, how's that add up to you?
Well, they got an idea.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong.
8:45 a.m. Ed and I left the office and continued making the rounds of the missing woman's friends and relatives. We checked at the Western National Bank, where Mrs. Abbott maintained another account. Her savings statement showed a total balance of $31,564.17. Her checking account had a balance of $842.71. At the Farmers Mutual, we found the record of an insurance policy issued to Florence Trumbull Abbott. It was a 20-pay life policy covering the insured in the amount of $30,000. The beneficiary was listed as the insured's son, Bruce Trumbull Abbott, if living upon receipt of such due proof. If not, the insured's husband, Chester J. Abbott. By the time we finished checking the missing woman's financial status, we figured we had a fair suspect in the husband, Chester Abbott. From casual reports, we knew he was a frugal man, almost to the point of obsession. If he was greedy as well, if he wanted or needed money badly enough to kill, then he had all the motives necessary to murder his wife. Maybe his stepson, too. 6:40 p.m., Ed and I drove back to the office. Go ahead.
Long day, out of mileage.
Yeah. Wonder if Al's still around. Hey, Bargetti. Al?
Yeah, here. That you, Friday?
Yeah.
How'd you do? Get anything?
A few things, pretty filled up.
Good. I got some more for you. Just walked in here 10 minutes ago.
Who's there?
Bruce Abbott. He's waiting in the next room.
We went into the next room and met the Abbott boy. He was small for a 17-year-old, dark-haired, thin, a little on the sickly side. He seemed nervous and upset. He told us that he wasn't able to keep the date he made with us on the phone because his stepfather did apparently overhear the conversation and drove the boy immediately to his sister's place in Alhambra. We asked the boy what made him so sure that his stepfather was responsible for his mother's disappearance.
Well, for one thing, all three of us usually go to the early show on Thursday night, Chester, Mom, and me. But last Thursday we didn't go.
Why was that, son?
Chester said he wasn't feeling too good and he wanted Mom to stay home and take care of him. Then he told me to go on ahead to the show, so I did.
What time did you get home, Bruce?
About 10:15, 10 o'clock.
Did you notice anything unusual when you got home, son?
Not so much, no. Mom wasn't there. I didn't think much about it then. I thought maybe she was over to one of the neighbors.
You asked your stepfather where she was?
Uh-huh. He said he didn't know. He said he thought she was over at one of the neighbors, too.
What was your stepfather doing when you got home?
Just sitting in the living room reading the paper. I usually don't talk to him too much. I just asked him where Mom was, and he told me, and then I went back to my room and went to bed.
Did you notice anything unusual about the way he acted? Anything different about him at all?
Well, I'm not too sure. He did seem a little nervous, though. Jumpy. More than usual, I think.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Well, when I came through the front yard, I noticed the dogs had mud all over their paws. Red, Jaime, and George, all three of them. They must have been out in the nursery plots.
Anything unusual about that?
In a way, yeah. You see, the dogs don't go out in the plots unless Chester's with them. He doesn't want them to trample the seedlings. I noticed Chester had mud on his shoes that night, too.
And you figure your stepfather was out digging somewhere in the nursery plots that night, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Digging somewhere. He must have been. Can't figure out why, though.
How do you mean, son?
My stepfather never works at night.
You are listening to Dragnet, authentic stories of your police force in action. Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And in Fatima, you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
To show our confidence in Fatima, we make this money-back guarantee to every king-size cigarette smoker.
Buy a pack of Fatimas. Enjoy Fatima quality, extra mildness, and superbly blended tobaccos.
If you're not convinced Fatima is better than the king-size cigarette you're now smoking, just return the pack and the unsmoked Fatimas before August 1st, 1952, and we'll give you your money back plus postage. Fatima, Box 37, New York 1.
Remember, each king-size Fatima gives you an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Switch to Fatima today. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Thursday, September 16th, 7:05 p.m. We continued talking to the missing woman's 17-year-old son, Bruce Abbott. As the interview went on, it became more and more obvious that the boy and his stepfather, Chester Abbott, didn't get along at all. Apparently, the boy was jealous of him, and he was jealous of the boy. Besides his prejudice, Bruce also contradicted himself during the course of the questioning. 7:15 p.m., the interview went on.
I understand that all right, son, but you say you can't think of any reason why your father'd be out working in the nursery plots that time of night?
No, sir, I can't. I don't know how he'd get any work done. None of the plots are even lighted, only the greenhouses.
Well, is it possible he could have gotten that mud on his shoes working in one of the greenhouses?
No, sir, I don't see how. All the paths in the greenhouses are graveled. It's my job to see they're kept graveled. I know they weren't muddy because I fixed them the day before.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think it means, Bruce?
I don't know. I don't want to think about it. I just know he's done something. He's done something to her.
Did your father, that is your stepfather, give you any reason for keeping you away from the police officers that came to your house? I mean, the first two officers who showed up?
No, he said people were getting nosy, that's all. He said it might be better for me over at my Aunt Helen's place.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think your Aunt Helen might know where your mother is?
I don't think so. We hardly ever see Aunt Helen. We don't know her well at all.
Well, do you know if your mother and stepfather argued very much, son? I mean, big arguments.
Sometimes, yeah. Mostly about me.
How do you mean?
Chester's pretty tight, you know. Doesn't like to spend money at all. He and Mom used to argue about whether I ought to get paid for the work I did around the nursery. Chester didn't want to pay me.
That's so?
Yeah, when I started working, he promised he'd pay me. I was saving up to buy a 31 Model A. After a couple of weeks, when he didn't pay me, I asked him about it. He told me I ought to be glad to work for him for nothing.
And your mother argued with him about that?
Sure, she got good and mad, too. She should have gotten mad. It was her money that bought the nursery anyway.
Well, how'd you happen to get away from your aunt's place, Bruce?
It wasn't too hard. Helen had some shopping to do, and she left me alone. She locked the door to my room. Even the screen over the window was nailed down, but I kicked it out and got away. I stayed at a friend's house last night.
You thought much about where you're going to stay tonight, son?
Well, I don't know. Sergeant Borghetti, I was talking to him. He asked me if I wanted to go out and have dinner and then stay at his house tonight. I don't know.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
I don't know. Sure nice of him to ask me.
I think it'd be a lot better for you, son. Why don't you check in the next office, see if Borghetti's ready to leave, huh?
Yeah. Okay, Sergeant. Thanks.
Sure.
You betcha.
Joe, what do you think?
It's hard to say. He might be lying. Before we signed out of the office that night, we met with Captain Lorman and outlined a plan to bring in the husband of the missing woman for questioning alone. We figured it'd serve two purposes: clarify the boy's position in the case and determine one way or another if the stepfather was withholding information about the disappearance of Mrs. Abbott. The big problem was to bring in Chester Abbott for interrogation without the knowledge of his lawyer. As we'd found out more than once, it was impossible to get anything out of Abbott with his lawyer present. We set up a plan to call at the Abbott home early in the morning, get the suspect out of bed, and bring him in before his lawyer could be notified. At 3:30 the following morning, Ed and I met at the office and started for the Abbott place. We brought along a couple of pounds of fresh horse meat to keep the dogs quiet if they raised a fuss. At 10 minutes past 4 a.m., we parked our car a few hundred feet down the road from the Abbott nursery and made our way toward the gate. I reached in and tried the latch. The dog started up.
How about it, Joe? Open?
No, it's padlocked. We're going to have to climb the fence. Toss some of that meat over to him, will you?
Yeah, okay. There.
All right, that does it. All right, let's climb the fence.
Keep an eye on the hounds. Looks like they can take a leg off.
Yeah. Take it easy, Ed.
All right. Watch that.
Here comes that other dog. Get some more of that meat there.
Yeah. There you are, boy. Go get it. Go on.
All right, that's fine. Come on, let's hurry.
Have a look, Joe.
Huh?
Windows along the side of the house. Lights just went on.
Yeah, come on.
Who is it? Who's there? Who is it? I'll set the dogs on you.
Police officers, Abbott, Friday and Jacobs.
What kind of business is this? What are you doing out here this time of night?
You're under arrest, Mr. Abbott.
What are you talking about?
I think you heard me. You're under arrest.
What kind of crazy thing is this? You're going to pay for this. I'll have your job.
You want to get your coat?
You cops are asking for a pack of trouble. You know that.
Get your coat.
I'd like to know what you think you're doing. Where's my stepson, anyway? What have you done with him?
I got a better one for you, mister.
Huh?
What have you done with your wife? 4:25 a.m. Ed and I drove the suspect, Chester Abbott, back downtown to the office. He was quiet and sullen. We headed down the hall for the squad room.
Light still burning in the office.
Yeah, probably Bargetti standing by. All right, Abbott, in there.
If you're going to pay for these, you can take my word on that.
Ed, you want to take him in the office here and stay with him? I'll check with Al.
Okay. All right, Abbott, inside.
Joe, you bring him in?
Yeah, he's next door. Ed's with him.
Tough. Somebody must have seen you.
No, I don't think so.
They must have.
Why? What do you mean?
Abbott's lawyer. He's sitting in the next room.
How the lawyer had been notified, we couldn't be sure. Again, we tried to question Abbott, and again, on the advice of his attorney, he refused to answer practically every question we put to him. We released him. That day, Captain Lorman assigned 2 men to stake out on the nursery and report on all of Chester Abbott's movements. A little after 7 p.m., just after nightfall, we tried again to bring the suspect in for questioning without his lawyer's knowledge. It didn't work. The men assigned to stake out on the Abbott place reported definitely that someone was tipping off the attorney whenever unknown visitors showed up at the nursery and drove off together with Mr. Abbott. There was nothing we could do about it. The following morning, Al Bargetti came up with a lead.
Had a long talk with the boy last night. Think he came up with a pretty fair lead.
How's that?
If the old man's responsible, we know there's only one way we'll get a conviction.
Yeah?
Find the body and enough evidence to tie him in.
Yeah, well, where do we start looking?
In a new rose bed. It's next to one of the greenhouses in Abbott's nursery.
Boy tell you this?
Yeah, seems to make sense. We know old man Abbott's crazy about saving $1. We found that out from the neighbors and the relatives.
Mm-hmm.
On the nursery trade, especially in the limited area Abbott has to work in, you cultivate every foot of ground you have. You plant every foot of soil with something.
Well, yeah, what's the point?
Well, Abbott's not the type to waste anything. He wouldn't let ground lie fallow when he could plant something that might bring in a few dollars next spring.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce tells me his stepfather has every inch of the property planted with something. Everything except a 6x8 plot of ground in that rose garden.
Well, what did the boy say? The plot been vacant for a long?
Well, he says his stepfather got it ready for planting a week and a half ago. It's still vacant.
Be worth checking out. How do we do it?
We can order up a crew from the crime lab. They can take probings through the plot all around it. They ought to be able to tell us how deep the ground's been worked over lately.
Okay. What do you figure, tonight?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Maybe 11, 12 o'clock.
What about old man Abbott? You think he's going to sit still for it?
If the hunch pays off, he's going to sit still a long time.
It was 10 minutes past 11 that night when we got to the Abbott nursery. Lee Jones and the crime lab crew, Al Bargetti, Ed, and 2 other men from homicide. The men on stakeout told us Chester Abbott, along with his attorney, had left the house a half hour before in his car, a dark blue coupe. They hadn't returned. Ed brought along another supply of fresh horse meat for the dogs, so we didn't have any trouble there. We located the vacant plot of ground in the rose bed next to one of the greenhouses, as Bruce Abbott had described it to Bargetti. The crime lab crew started probing. The ground obviously had been worked over recently, and to some depth. They started digging.
Anderson, get that light over here, will you? Thanks. Joe, see anything?
No. Let's keep digging.
It's right over here.
Yeah. You know, this is it. He wasn't taking any chances. Down a good 4 or 5 feet now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, at least that.
Anderson, more light, huh?
All right, let's go at it. All right, wait a minute.
Yeah.
A woman's shoe here. Come on.
Just a minute.
Yeah, that's it. The shoulder there. It's a body. Well, it paid off, Al. The boy had it figured.
Yeah. Too bad he was right.
Ed and I went back to our car and notified communications to broadcast a warrant for murder on Chester Abbott. His description, together with a description of his car and license number, was rebroadcast every 15 minutes. The attorney was contacted, and he stated that Mr. Abbott had dropped him off at his home more than an hour before. He knew nothing of his whereabouts. Ed and I went back to check the Abbott home and found the front door unlocked. We went inside and looked around. In one bedroom, we found clothes scattered over the bed and on the floor. There was only one old suit left in one closet. On the table next to the bed, we found an airline's timetable. We got to the phone and notified communications to alert all special details at railroad stations, bus terminals, and airports, and then to get out an APB. After that, we checked with the airlines. One of them told us a man answering Abbott's description had booked passage to Mexico City that night under the name of Charles Frazier. The plane was scheduled to leave at 1:52 a.m. at the Burbank Airport. We called the detail at the airport and alerted them. Then we drove over to the field to follow through on it. It was 1:32 a.m. when Ed and I took up our positions just inside Gate 3, where passengers were boarding Flight 72 for Mexico City. There was no sign of the suspect either on the plane or in the waiting room.
Think you'll show?
I don't know.
Brought your bag over here?
Where's Bargetti?
Over there by the cocktail lounge. See him?
Oh, yeah. What time you got now?
1:38.
Plane's due to take off in another 4 minutes, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Any sign of him, Al?
No, nothing. Just made the rounds. Checked with Stevens and Cummings. If he got in, he came in somebody's suitcase. Couldn't have possibly gotten through without one of us seeing it.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't got much more time. Maybe it's a dead end, huh?
You don't see how he could have gotten wise, do you?
Over there. No, by the ticket counter there. You see him?
Yeah, that's him. Come on. All right, just a minute, Abbott.
I haven't got time now. I'll miss my plane. If you have anything more to say to me, you can wait till I get back.
Right now, Abbott.
And take it up with my lawyer. I'm in a hurry.
We found your wife's body.
How's that?
In the rose bed next to the greenhouse.
I don't know what you mean. You must be mistaken.
No mistake. Hands behind your back.
What's this all about? I haven't done anything.
All right, let's go.
No, just a minute. You got it wrong. I don't know anything about it.
We think you do. Now, come on.
Wasn't my fault. I didn't know what I was doing. I plead insanity. She drove me to it. We were arguing about the boy, and she slapped me. I didn't mean to do it.
All right, let's go, Abbott.
Can you wait just a minute more?
What for?
My plane. One for Mexico City. Funny, isn't it?
What's that?
I was so close. Just missed it. Not by more than 1 minute.
No, you're wrong about that, Abbott.
Just 1 minute, that's all.
Well, you missed it before you ever bought your ticket.
How do you figure?
When you first decided to kill your wife. Come on.
The story you have just heard was true. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
On December 19th, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 89, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
Now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you, George Fenneman. Friends, I'm holding 2 sets of fingerprint cards. Now, on one, prints found at the scene of a crime. On the second, a suspect's taken from the files. Now, the only way in the world you can tell they're made by the same suspect is by comparison. If you'll compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette, you'll find Fatima's length filters the smoke, 85 millimeters, for your protection. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size. And you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality. Prove it today. Buy Fatima.
Chester Vernon Abbott was tried and convicted of murder in the first degree. The jury failed to recommend clemency. Abbott was executed in the lethal gas chamber at the State Penitentiary Center. You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department. Technical advisors Captain Jack Donahoe, Sergeant Marty Wynn, and Sergeant Vance Brasher. Heard tonight were Barney Phillips and Herb Ellis. Script by Jim Moser. Music by Walter Schumann. Hal Gibney speaking.
Fatima Cigarettes. Best of all king-size cigarettes has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles.
Now it's Counter Spy on NBC.
The story you are about to hear is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima Cigarettes. Best of all king-size cigarettes brings you Dragnet on both radio and television.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to Personnel Division. A resident of your city files a report of assault and battery. His shoulder is dislocated. He's been badly beaten. He claims his assailant was a young police officer. Your job, investigate.
Comparison proves Fatima quality.
Yes, comparison proves Fatima quality.
Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Definitely the best quality in its class, but the same price as the cigarette you are now smoking.
Prove Fatima quality yourself today. Buy Fatima in the bright, sunny yellow pack. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Tuesday, June 11th. It was mild in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of BIA. My partner's Ed Jacobs. The boss is Lieutenant Jessup. My name's Friday. It was 10:23 a.m. when I got to room 83, the squad room.
Joe, you catch up with the lieutenant?
Yeah, in a meeting. He said he'd be out about 11:30. He wants us to handle it for the time being.
Oh. Well, Joe, this is Officer Blanchard. This is my partner, Joe Friday.
I'm glad to know you, Friday. I think I've seen you around Central a couple of times.
Yeah, sure. How are you?
Well, what's this thing all about? Do you mind telling me?
You worked yesterday, did you?
Yeah, that's right. My regular beat, South Central area.
Anything out of the ordinary happen while you were on duty?
No, not much. Made a couple of pinches, that's about all. Pretty quiet otherwise.
Did you make one of those arrests at 7928 Cortlandt Avenue?
Yeah, that's right. A woman, 2 men, users. All 3 of them were booked in violation of State Narcotics Act.
Any of the 3 familiar to you at all, Blanchard? I mean, had you ever seen them before the time you arrested them?
No, none of them. I knew the place, though. I've been keeping an eye on it lately. One of those old-fashioned homes converted into a rooming house.
Uh-huh.
I've been noticing some of the people going in and out of the place. They didn't look too good to me. And that's why I say I've been keeping an eye on the house. Hey, what's the story on this anyway? You get a kickback on the arrest I made?
Well, we'd like to have your version of it first, Blanchard. Exactly what happened. How'd you come to make the pinch?
Well, I was walking my regular beat. I think it was about 3:30 yesterday afternoon. I was going along Cortlandt, the 7900 block. A woman came out of the front door and hailed me. She complained about a 507 party in the house a couple doors down the street.
That was at number 7928, the boarding house?
Yeah. I checked it out. The party was going on up on the 3rd floor. I went up, found the girl and the 2 men in the room facing on the street. The girl was fixing a pop for herself when I came in. 2 caps of heroin on the table in front of her.
Mm-hmm. What'd you do then?
I made a grab for the 2 caps. One of the guys beat me to it. Got him, ran to the next room, and tried to flush him down the drain. He didn't quite make it, though. I got one of the caps before he could get rid of it.
What'd you do then, Blanchard?
Well, I sat the 3 of them down, called into the office. I checked the room over while we were waiting, found 2 more caps of heroin, usual equipment to go with it. When the radio car showed up, the 3 of them were taken downtown to narcotics squad and booked. That's all I can tell you about it.
Well, during the time you were waiting there in the room, Blanchard, did you have any trouble with the suspects at all?
Well, I got a lot of talk from one of the men, a fellow by the name of Evans. He's supposed to run the boarding house. Claims he didn't have anything to do with it. He didn't know the girl was a hype. You know, the usual stuff.
And that was the extent of it? Just talk?
Sure, that's all. Why?
Well, that's not the story, according to Evans. He had his lawyer bail him out last night. He was in to file charges against you.
Huh? What do you mean?
Assault and battery. He claims that you worked him over for no reason at all. He says you beat him up and dislocated his shoulder.
Oh, he's crazy. He's lying. I didn't work him over.
Well, he says he's got witnesses to prove it, Blanchard. The 2 people who were with him, the woman, the other man. He says they'll swear that's what you did.
Yeah, but it's not true. They're trying to cook up a frame. I didn't touch any of them.
Well, this Evans looks like he's been mussed up. Cuts and bruises all over his face. His shoulder's fairly recent, too.
Yeah, I know that, but I didn't do it. He was in the same shape when I found him up in that room yesterday. Matter of fact, I asked him about it. He wouldn't tell me. It's the truth, Sergeant, so help me. All 3 of them are lying. I didn't beat him up.
Well, it's your word against theirs, Blanchard. The facts seem to favor Evans.
I don't get this at all. 2 of those people are known hypes. They'd swear anything for a free cap. You know that. What good is their word?
Maybe no good at all. It's not up to us to decide. Evans filed a complaint. It's our job to follow through.
Now, you're sure about the shape Evans was in when you found him up in that room yesterday, Blanchard? He was already marked up, is that right?
I'm sure he was. I told you. I asked him about it. He wouldn't answer me.
But you had no way of proving that you couldn't possibly have been responsible for it.
Well, it's up to him, isn't it, Evans? If he says I worked him over, let him prove it.
I'm afraid he's got the jump there. 2 witnesses.
Yeah, but they're lying. You must know that. They're lying.
Well, now, look, you can see the position it puts us in. If you're innocent, we're going to do all we can. If you're guilty, we'll see that you get everything that's coming to you.
Well, you know it as well as I do, Sergeant. I had no reason to beat him up. I didn't do it.
Well, it's not up to us, Blanchard. The court will have to decide.
Doesn't make sense. None of it does.
There's no other way to handle it. We got 4,500 men in the department. We don't claim they're all saints. Once in a while, one of them turns bad, and all of us get a black eye. You're in a jam, Blanchard. Like anyone else, you'll get a fair trial.
Yeah. Well, what happens now? Do I draw suspension?
Yeah, that's right. If you're cleared of the charges in court, there'll be a hearing before the Board of Rights.
Am I through right now?
We'll have to book you in at the main jail. Case will be presented at the DA's office tomorrow.
Doesn't make sense. I had no reason to beat up Evans. No reason at all.
You sure of that, are you?
What do you mean? Of course I'm sure.
Well, Evans claims you did have a reason, a good one.
What?
Well, he says you handed him a proposition. He wouldn't go for it, so you worked him over.
What do you mean? What kind of a proposition?
The bad kind.
Huh?
He says you wanted a payoff. Investigating charges against a police officer involves exactly the same procedure as cases where private citizens are concerned. Prove the suspect innocent or guilty. If Blanchard was innocent, it wasn't going to be an easy job proving it. If he hadn't beat up the complainant, George Evans, and dislocated his shoulder, it seemed the only way out would be to find the man who did. Either that or prove that the two witnesses Evans had come up with were lying. If Blanchard was guilty, if he actually had slugged and beaten Evans, we had to find sufficient evidence and we had to find a motive. 11:10 a.m., Ed and I took Officer Harry Blanchard over to the main jail where he was booked in and lodged in one of the cell blocks. Then we went upstairs to the women's jail where we interviewed one of the witnesses to the alleged beating, an Eleanor Rowland. She'd had previous arrests for vagrancy, grand theft auto, and petty theft, as well as an established reputation as a user of narcotics. She was 23 years old.
Yeah, it was terrible. That cop really roughed him up, poor old Evans. Cop didn't have to treat him like that.
How long have you known George Evans, Miss Rowland? You old friends?
No, I wouldn't say that. I met him a couple weeks ago when I came down from north.
San Francisco?
Portland. I was visiting up there. I'm a Portland girl originally.
Well, how about this other man you were with at the time Officer Blanchard picked you up, this Ray Sherman? He an old friend?
Buster, yeah, I've known him a few years.
So you know Evans very well?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Ray's had a room at the boarding house a couple of years. I guess he's good friends with Evans. Say, can I ask you something?
Yes, ma'am.
You ever work narcotics up in Portland?
No, ma'am, never have.
Phrase is familiar. Could have sworn I mentioned Portland.
Do you want to run over that story again for us, Miss Rowland, about what happened yesterday?
Not much to say, just the same as I told you.
You usually stay at Evans' rooming house when you're in town, do you?
No, that's only the second time I was there.
How about George Evans? Was he there at the time?
No, not first. Me and Buster had a pop, and then we sat around and talked. Evans came in a little later. Three of us talked. Told me and Buster not to bring any more junk in the house. He didn't want to get into trouble. Didn't speak of the devil, a cop walked in.
What happened then?
Buster grabbed two caps off the table, tried to get rid of them. He only got rid of one, though. The cop got the other one.
Well, how'd the argument start? You remember that? Between Evans and the officer, I mean.
Well, I was a little high at the time. I don't remember it word for word. Evans said he didn't have anything to do with it, but the cop kept pressing him. He told Evans he'd forget about it if Evans would pay him off. Evans told him no, he wouldn't give him a cent, and then the cop started beating him up.
You were in the same room with him all this time?
Yeah, Buster and me. We saw it all, poor old Evans. He really got worked over. Cop didn't have to treat him like that. Say, are you sure you're not from Portland?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sure. Now, about how many times would you say the officer hit Evans?
Oh, I couldn't tell you that exactly. Dozens of times, I guess. Kept hitting him with his fist, pushed him all around the room. I was a little high at the time. I don't remember everything exactly. Sure could use a booster about now.
Are you sure about everything you've told us, Miss Rowland? That's the truth?
Yeah, that's right. Some of the details I didn't remember so well. He straightened it out for me, though. He told me just what happened.
Who's that?
George Evans.
11:50 a.m. Ed and I continued questioning Eleanor Rowland. The more we talked to her, the more we were convinced that at the time of the alleged beating, she was under a heavy dose of narcotics, and that for the most part, she picked up her version of the story from the alleged victim, George Evans. We went down to the second floor of the main jail to one of the interview rooms where we talked to the second witness, Ray Sherman, alias Tom Raymond, alias Buster Raymond. He also had a long record as a user of narcotics. He gave the same general version of the incident as the Rowland girl did, but despite the girl's story, he claimed he was not under the influence of narcotics at the time Officer Blanchard entered the room and made the arrest. Besides that, there were other discrepancies. 1:05 p.m., we had some lunch at the Federal Cafe, and then we drove out to interview the complainant in the case, George Evans. After checking in his rooming house, we finally located him in a neighborhood bowling alley. He was sitting at a bar adjoining the actual playing area, drinking a bottle of beer. Parts of his face and neck were bandaged, and his left shoulder was in a cast. He appeared friendly and cooperative.
I kept telling the cop I didn't have any money. Told him I wouldn't give him a payoff even if I did.
So he started working you over, that right, Evans?
Yes, that's right. I don't have anything against cops normally, but this guy, that's something else.
How do you ever get on the force, anyway?
Had you ever had any contact with Officer Blanchard before yesterday, Evans?
Yes, I did, twice before. He came to the house, accused me of running a hideout for thieves, junkies. Tried to get me to pay him off then, too. I wouldn't do it.
That's, when was that, Evans?
About 6-8 months ago. Yeah, at least that.
Well, how was it you didn't report Blanchard then?
Well, that wouldn't cause any trouble, get mixed up in a law case. I figured I could take care of him myself. But after that going over yesterday, that was enough for me. I don't understand how the guy ever made the force to begin with.
What's the matter?
A shoulder of mine. He really tore it apart.
How'd you spend your time yesterday, Evan? Do you mind telling us?
No, I don't mind. I slept till about 12:30, 1 o'clock. Had a little bit of a hangover. Then I got up and made some breakfast and read the paper. That's about size.
You mean you were in your room all day after the time you went down the hall to Ray Sherman's room?
That's right. Ray was there with this girlfriend of his, Eleanor. I didn't know she was a hype. That's the truth. Ray should have known better having her there. I don't like the kind of stuff going on around my place.
Now, we've checked you through the record bureau, Evans. There's been 3 or 4 similar cases at your places the last few years, hasn't there?
A couple, yeah. It's a real problem. I don't know how you keep them out. Whole neighborhood around here, you know. Pretty hard to stop it, I guess.
We understand you were in the room there while the girl helped herself to a fix. Is that right?
No, I wasn't in the room when she took the fix. I got there a couple minutes after. I didn't even know what was going on. You can ask Ray Sherman, the girl, too. They'll tell you I wasn't there.
Well, there's something else we wanted to ask you about. Sherman and the girl don't seem too sure of their stories. Can you straighten us out there?
How do you mean?
Well, Sherman tells us one thing, the girl tells us something else. Can't seem to get together.
Yeah, but I told him.
You told him what, Evan?
Well, nothing. I told him to tell the truth, that's all. That stupid Ray. He doesn't know half the time what he's doing.
Well, that doesn't make him much of a witness then, does it?
Well, what do you mean? He was there when that cop slugged me, beat me up. He could see that much.
Well, that's just it. We're not sure he did.
Huh?
The girl says Blanchard worked you over in the living room there. Sherman says Blanchard took you out in the kitchen and beat you up. Now, which is it?
I think I'm beginning to get the pitch.
How's that?
You're out to cover up for that cop. Is that it? Take care of your own?
We're assigned to investigate this thing, Evans, just like any other criminal case. Blanchard's not getting any more of a break than any other suspect would.
Yeah, sure.
We still haven't answered our question. Where did it happen, living room or kitchen?
The interview's all over, Sergeant. I got the pitch. You can take this back to your office. I'm going to get that cop convicted. If it's the last thing I do, you can count on that.
What's the matter, Evans? All we did was ask you a simple question.
Don't try to kid me, Sergeant. I got the angle. You're trying for a cover-up. Okay, go ahead and try.
Now, look, why don't you snap out of it, mister? Nobody's trying to cover up unless it's you. Sherman and the girl are your witnesses. Some of the points of their stories don't check out. We want to clear them up. Does that sound unreasonable?
I told you, Sergeant, it's no use. I got your angle.
Answer me one more thing, Evans.
You're on your own. I'm telling you nothing.
Who was the doctor that treated you after you were beaten up?
Down at Georgia Street, the emergency. You ought to know that.
No, I mean for your shoulder. We checked over your car down at Georgia Street. No mention there of a dislocated shoulder.
No, of course not. I didn't even know I had one until I was bailed out. I had my own doctor fix it.
You mind giving us his name?
Why should I? I was willing to go along, cooperate. Then you started playing the cage. You're trying to cover up for that cop. Now you work it out on your own.
All right, mister. Any way you want it.
You bet that's the way I want it. You had this whole thing framed from the beginning.
Now you're off the track, Evans.
You're not kidding me. You're trying to prove that cop's innocent, trying to make me out a liar. What am I supposed to do? Help you prove I'm a liar?
No, you've helped enough already. Ed and I double-checked through Officer Blanchard's departmental record. It showed that Blanchard had been working his present beat for a little more than 4 months. Evans had told us that Blanchard allegedly had solicited payoffs from him at least 6 to 8 months before. The following day, Ed and I made further inquiries in the neighborhood of Evans' rooming house and also among his friends and associates. For one thing, we found out that Evans had not spent the entire morning and early afternoon in the house. He'd been seen leaving his place by several neighbors at about 10 a.m. Through one of his contacts, we got the address of an ex-wife, since remarried, a Marie Evans Zarconi. We located her in a small apartment in the East Wilshire district, a small brunette woman about 35.
Now, you tell us you used to be married to Evans.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, what kind of business was Evans in when you were married to him, ma'am?
Well, he had that rooming house over on Cortland
Yes,
Avenue.
ma'am, we know about that. Was there anything else?
What's the matter, anyway?
Just a routine investigation. We'd like to have as much background on him as you can remember. Are you on fairly good terms with Evans now?
No, I haven't seen him since we split up. About a year and a half ago, I think. That's why I couldn't stand him.
What was the trouble, ma'am? You mind telling us?
He just isn't much good, that's all. You find a lot of names to fit him. He was in everything.
Well, how do you mean?
That's why I got away from him. Every cheap, lousy racket you can think of, he was in it. Peddling dope, blackmail, making book, some of the two-bit rackets. He's been in all of them, one after the other. I had to get away.
The rooming house on Portland Avenue, that's where he's been operating all this time?
As long as I've known him, yeah. About 3 years, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Is narcotics just a sideline with him, or does he go in for it pretty heavy?
He was in it pretty heavy when I left him. I don't know what he's been doing since. I don't care. Just soon forget all about it.
Yes, ma'am, I can understand.
What's the matter now, anyway? Got a case against him?
Well, not exactly. Evans has filed against a police officer, assault and battery, soliciting a bribe. We're investigating the charges.
Sounds like him. Some cop really rough him up?
Well, we don't know, ma'am. That's what we're trying to find out.
Oh. Well, I'd like to help you out. Don't think I can, though.
Well, just one more question, ma'am. While you were married to Evans, did you have a family doctor? I mean, one that you called regularly when you were sick?
Yeah, we did. Why?
Well, what was his name? Can you remember?
Yeah, Dr. Chase. Would you like his address?
2:47 p.m. We got to Dr. Chase's office, and luckily we found him in.
Take a look at this magazine, Joe.
What?
National Geographic. Looks like a real old one, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it sure does. Cover's torn off there.
Yeah. What do you know about that? It's older than I thought. Look at this here.
What do you got?
These pictures, eh? Look. 4 pages of them. Pretty grand affair, huh?
Yeah.
Teddy Roosevelt breaks ground for Panama Canal. How about that?
Yeah.
Sorry to keep you waiting, gentlemen.
That's perfectly all right, Doctor.
Let's see now. You want to know about...
Mr. Evans, Doctor. George Evans.
Oh, yes, Evans. What was it exactly, Sergeant? What did you have in mind?
Well, the first thing we'd like to know is if you've treated Evans recently, the last week or so.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have. He was in here, well, let me see now. Let's see, yes, I thought so. He was in here 3 days ago. I had some bad cuts and bruises.
Mm-hmm.
They'd already been treated, though. There wasn't much I could do.
Well, was there anything else wrong with him, Doctor?
No, not actually. I examined his shoulder. He insisted it hurt him. He wanted me to put it in a cast.
Mm-hmm. You put the cast on, did you?
Well, there really wasn't any need for it, but I put it on anyway. A little bit of psychiatry thought it'd make him feel better.
Well, how do you mean, Doctor? Wasn't any need for it?
Just one of those peculiar things. I've been treating Evans for some time, you know.
Yes, sir. That's what we understand.
It's fairly unusual. Hardly a rare case, though. I suppose you might call it a trick shoulder. It looks as though it might be dislocated, but it actually isn't. I think it's voluntary.
You mean he could do this thing himself?
Oh, yes. He can make it appear dislocated anytime he wants.
You are listening to Dragnet, authentic stories of your police force in action.
Fatima, America's first largest-selling blended cigarette. Now, best of all, king-size cigarettes. Prove it yourself today.
Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Friends, in Fatima, the difference is quality. Fatima contains the finest domestic and Turkish tobaccos superbly blended. And Fatima is extra mild, with a much different, much better flavor and aroma. Because of its quality, its extra mildness, its better flavor and aroma, more smokers now insist on Fatima than ever before. Switch to Fatima today. Remember, each king-size Fatima filters and cools the smoke, gives you those extra puffs, and you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality. Buy Fatima. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Saturday, June 15th, 10 a.m. The investigation continued. Meantime, the newspapers were still making front-page material out of the story. One of the morning banner lines read, "Cop slugs cripples citizen to get payoff," and another one, "Police brutality rouses entire city." Our investigation went on. Early Saturday afternoon, Ed and I succeeded in locating a former friend of Evans who told us that he'd seen him downtown the morning of the day on which the alleged beating had taken place. The same time Evans had told us he was in bed nursing a hangover. The former friend, a Fred Werner, said Evans was in the company of 2 known gamblers, Carl Sweetser and Stanley Parrish. He told us that he'd spotted the 3 of them together at about 11:45 a.m. We questioned Sweetser and Parrish, but they refused to tell us anything. They admitted that they were acquainted with Evans, but they knew nothing about the beating he'd received. We continued making the rounds. 5:30 p.m. We dropped to the main jail and questioned Evans' 2 witnesses, again, Ray Sherman and Eleanor Rowland. We got the same stories as before. 6:18 p.m. We got back to the city hall.
Long stretch, huh? Sure be glad to get home.
Yeah, not a bad day, though. We had fair luck, though.
I suppose so. It could always be better. Sure like to get the straight story one way or the other.
You want to check the book, Ed, see if we got anything?
Yeah, okay. No, not much, Joe. Call from a Tom Donnelly. You know him?
Donnelly? No, that doesn't sound too familiar to me.
I got it. Personnel Jacobs. How's that? No, afraid he's gone for the night. Yeah, huh? No, I'm sorry. I wouldn't know. All right, thank you. Another message here for us, Joe, in the book.
Yeah?
From Blanchard's wife again. I'm getting to feel pretty silly about it, telling her the same thing night after night. Why don't you call her tonight?
Well, you've been doing all right. Why give up now? Personnel, Friday. Yeah. What was that? Mm-hmm. Your name? Yeah, okay. Uh-huh. 10 o'clock tonight? All right, that's fine. That's so. Sure. Yeah, we'll meet you. Okay. 10 o'clock. Yeah, fine. Bye. Sounds pretty good.
Who was it?
A guy by the name of Martin Kimbrough says he knows George Evans. He wants to talk to us tonight.
What's the pitch?
I don't know. Might be straight, might not.
What'd he say?
About Evans being worked over. He claims he knows all about it.
Yeah?
He says Blanchard couldn't possibly have done it. 7:05 p.m. We went over to Frank Tang's place, had some dinner, and then we drove out to interview the man who'd identified himself on the phone as Martin Kimbrough. We located him at the designated meeting place, a small bar just off Beverly Boulevard and Normandy Avenue. Kimbrough was a small man, slight build, middle-aged. He seemed less sure of himself than he did on the phone. He said that he knew George Evans fairly well and that up until 6 months before he'd been on good terms with him. He didn't go into details, but he gave us the general idea that Evans had cheated him on some business deal the two of them had been engaged in. We asked Kimbrough about the beating Evans had taken. He said it was common knowledge among the people he traveled with that gamblers Carl Sweetser and Stanley Parrish were responsible for beating up Evans. He'd welched on a gambling debt, and the two of them had been after him for months to pay off. He also said he knew a close friend of the two gamblers who told him that in private, Carl Sweetser openly boasted of beating up Evans. According to Kimbrough, the beating had taken place about 1 p.m., the Monday before, the same day Officer Blanchard allegedly had given him the beating. We located Sweetser in the coffee shop of a small hotel on South Rampart Street.
I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about, Sergeant. I don't know any George Evans. I've never heard of him.
We understand you do, Sweetser. Heard you used to play cards with him. Got it from a couple of people.
That's all. I guess they made a mistake. I don't remember the name at all. Maybe he's going under a different one, huh?
Well, how about his description? You ought to remember that.
Well, maybe I meet quite a few people. It's kind of hard to place all of them, you know. What's the guy look like?
Oh, he's tall, dark complexion, dark hair, scar under his chin. He dresses pretty well, usually wears a suit.
No, that doesn't mean a thing to me.
Runs a rooming house over on Cortlandt Avenue. He's been in quite a few rackets, all in all.
No, sorry. I'm afraid I wouldn't know him.
Now, look, we haven't got any beef with you, Sweetser. That's not the point. Evans is trying to get away with a fast one. We're out to stop him. We could use your help. How about it?
I don't see how I can help you. What's the beef, anyway?
We think you know. It's been all over the newspapers the last couple of days.
Oh, yeah. A young cop? What's Evans got against him, anyway?
He's trying to save face. We figure that's what we hear, anyway.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, I think you know how Evans likes to play the big shot. It wouldn't do his stock much good around town if the real story got out.
I don't follow. What story are you talking about?
About his welching on a gambling tab, getting roughed up. If he says a cop did it, makes him look a lot better, doesn't it? He comes out of it pretty clean that way, doesn't he?
Pass us all, huh?
Yeah, sure.
Why don't you guys have some coffee? I hate to eat alone.
Okay, as soon as the waitress comes around.
No. Oh, what else you hear about this, Evans? Pretty bad boy, that, right?
Bad enough. He's got a fast mouth, telling quite a few stories around the neighborhood.
That's so. Yeah, I might remember him. Tall, dark guy runs a rooming house.
Yeah, that's right. You should remember him. He's mentioned you in a couple of the stories he's passing around.
Yeah, where'd you get that?
Talking to a fellow last night. He says Evans claims that card game he was in with you was rigged. That's why he didn't pay you off. He claims you and Stan Parrish framed the whole thing. Is that right?
That's a laugh. Huh? Phony bums are all alike. Lose a couple of dollars and squeal like a pig. What's this Evans doing now?
He's up for a narcotics rap. He's out on bail.
Yeah, cheap punk. What's your stake in this thing?
We're trying to clear the thing up. Apparently, Evans figures he's going to frame the young cop, save face, talk himself out of a bad situation.
Oh, what do you want from me?
The truth.
I'm not going to talk myself into jail, young cop or not.
We're not asking you to.
You want to clear the case, huh? All you need is proof the cop didn't give Evans a working over.
That's right.
Okay, you got a deal.
Without actually incriminating himself in any way, Carl Sweetser gave us information and leads which, after they were checked out, showed definitely that George Evans was slugged and beaten in a neighborhood at least a mile from his rooming house. We talked to half a dozen people who saw Evans in that neighborhood shortly after 1 p.m., the day of the incident. We talked to the clerk at the drugstore where Evans went to buy iodine and bandages. They all told us that he bore the markings of a severe beating as early as 1 o'clock that afternoon. Evans had told us repeatedly that he'd received the beating at the hands of Officer Blanchard no earlier than 3 or 3:15 that afternoon. Ed and I drove over to the main jail where we interviewed Evans' two witnesses again. The girl, Eleanor Rowland, was the first to break. She admitted that Evans had promised both her and her friend, Ray Sherman, $50 apiece if they would go along with him in his plan to frame Officer Blanchard for assault and battery and soliciting a bride. After an hour of questioning, Sherman admitted the same thing. We had a stenographer take their statements. 4:50 p.m., Ed and I got in the car and drove out to the rooming house on Cortlandt Avenue.
Yeah? Oh, hi, Sergeant.
You want to get your coat, Evans? Like to see you downtown.
What for? What's it about?
Filing a false report. You know the story.
What are you talking about? What do you mean a false report?
You've been checked out all over town, Evans. Your doctor, your ex-wife, your gambling friends. We talked to them all.
So what? What's that prove anyway?
Proves you were lying, mister. That young officer, Blanchard, he didn't beat you up. There's nothing wrong with your shoulder either. Dr. Chase will vouch for that.
Look, I don't care what he says. I don't care what any of them say. I got my case against that cop. I'm sticking with it. You're not going to talk me
Why
out
don't you give it up, Evans? We had a talk with Carl Sweetser.
What did he tell you?
Enough to convince us you're trying to frame Blanchard. We've got statements from people who saw you before you got back home Monday afternoon. They say you were mussed up then. That was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You've been telling us Blanchard wasn't at your place till 3 o'clock. Now, how do you explain that?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I didn't have the time right. My watch could have been off. Doesn't make any difference anyway.
It's going to make a lot of difference. How about getting your coat?
I'm going to call my lawyer first.
That isn't going to do much good. We've got statements from your two witnesses, Ray Sherman and the girl. They've admitted the whole thing. Now, you haven't got much of a case left.
I don't care what they say. They're lying. Both of them. They're lying.
You ought to know, mister.
What?
You taught them how.
The story you have just heard was true. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
On September 2nd, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 89, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
And now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you, George Fenneman. Friends, I sincerely want you to smoke Fatima and prove Fatima quality. You know, we have a lot of confidence in our king-size cigarette. Enough confidence to make you this money-back guarantee. Buy a pack of Fatimas. Compare them with any other king-size cigarette. If you're not convinced Fatima is better, just return the pack and the unsmoked Fatimas by August 1st, 1952, and we'll give you your money back plus postage. Fatima, Box 37, New York 1. Buy Fatima. Best of all, king-size cigarette.
A complaint was received on George Evans from the city attorney's office for violation of Section 5243 Municipal Code, filing a false report to the police department, a misdemeanor. He received a sentence of 30 days in the county jail. Ray Sherman was tried and found guilty of Section 11500 Health and Safety Code, possession of narcotics. He was sentenced to 1 year in the county jail and 3 years probation. Eleanor Rowland was filed on as a bag addict, Section 11721, Health and Safety Code. She was sentenced to 60 days in the county jail. Officer Harry Blanchard was cleared of the charges pending against him and was reinstated. You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department. Technical advisors Captain Jack Donahoe, Sergeant Marty Wynn, and Sergeant Vance Brasher. Heard tonight were Barney Phillips and Whit Connor. Script by Jim Moser. Music by Walter Schumann. Hal Gibney speaking.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all king-size cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles. Now, it's Counter Spy on NBC. The story you are about to hear is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all king-size cigarettes, brings you Dragnet on both radio and television.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned a homicide detail. You receive a complaint about the owner of an apartment building. He signs leases for the apartments, then he threatens to kill the tenants if they move in. Your job? Investigate.
Comparison proves Fatima quality.
Yes, comparison proves Fatima quality.
Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs. 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Definitely the best quality in its class, but the same price as the cigarette you are now smoking.
In Fatima, the difference is quality. Buy Fatima in the bright, sunny yellow pack. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Wednesday, May 9th. It was hot in Los Angeles. We were working the night watch out of homicide detail. My partner's Ed Jacobs. The boss is Captain Lorman. My name's Friday. It was 6:47 p.m. when I got back to the Capitol Avenue Auto Court. Cottage number 11.
No reason in the world for it. I tried to reason with him. He wouldn't even listen. It's the craziest thing I ever saw.
Yes, ma'am. Now, George, you find the phone all right?
Yeah, I checked the office. Lopey says they picked up Daniels a few minutes ago. They'll bring him downtown now.
Well, they got him, did they? They're going to put him in jail?
Well, it depends, ma'am. It's going to take a little more investigating first.
I don't see what else you need. He threatened us with a gun, me and Doris Ashby. If that isn't a crime, I don't know what is.
A few more questions we'd like to ask you, ma'am, if you don't mind. A couple of things we'd like to clear up.
I told you just how it happened. Doris will tell you the same thing. He's just a crazy old man, if you ask me. Ought to be put away.
Did you ever have any trouble with Mr. Daniels before this afternoon, Miss Cameron?
Excuse me, the baby.
Yes, ma'am.
What is it now, honey? Can't you sleep? You try now, won't you? Daddy will be home pretty soon. That's a good boy. You try and sleep now.
Miss Cameron?
Yes. Oh, you be quiet now. I don't want any trouble from you. You heard me. Be quiet now.
You got your hands full, ma'am.
Don't I know it? A canary, 4-month-old baby, trying to keep house in an auto court. If I knew it was going to be like this, I never would have left Paso Robles.
You've only been in town a week or so, is that right?
It's closer to 2 weeks. Seems more like 2 months trying to get along in a place like this. A room and a bath, no place to cook, rinse out diapers. It's terrible. I told my husband he should come down here alone, find us a place to live first. Then we could move. No, he had to have it his way.
Mm-hmm. You say your husband made the first contact with Daniels. He gave him a deposit on this apartment, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. The same day he started work at the aircraft plant in the valley. We've been living in Paso Robles since we got married. A month ago, Pete, that's my husband, he got a lead on this aircraft job down here. Him and Ralph came down and signed up for it.
Ralph, who's that, ma'am?
Ralph Ashby. He's Doris's husband. Doris Ashby. She's my best girlfriend. We were neighbors up in Paso Robles.
Oh, I see.
They're not doing much better than we are right now. They're staying in another court up the street. Same thing, room and a bath. Doris is expecting, too, a poor kid. Did you hear me? You be quiet now. You want to wake up the baby?
About the arrangements your husband made with Daniels to lease this apartment, Miss Cameron, when was all this?
A week ago Monday, the day after I moved down here. My husband and Ralph Ashby saw the rental ad in the paper, and they went over and talked to Daniels. He said, all right. He had an apartment for the Ashbys and one for us. Nice places, too.
I see.
Ralph and my husband signed the leases, gave him the first and last month's rent in advance. It was all decided.
Well, how is it you couldn't move in right away, Miss Cameron?
Well, he said he was having the apartment house redecorated. Daniels did, I mean. He told Ralph and my husband the apartments would probably be ready for us on the 8th. That was yesterday. He said the 9th for sure, and that's today.
And you tried to move in this afternoon, and Daniels refused to let you in. Is that it?
I had the movers get all our things out of storage and move them out to the apartment. So did my girlfriend, Doris. The movers were just starting to get our furniture out of the van and move it into the apartment when Mr. Daniels showed up. He acted like a crazy man.
Well, did he give you any reasons why he couldn't move in?
He tried to give us a lot of reasons. None of them made any sense. You could ask Doris. She'll tell you. She was there with me.
Well, what did Daniels say, now, just for instance?
He said a lot of things. First, he told us there was no water in the apartments. It hadn't been turned on yet. He said the gas wasn't turned on either. Well, I knew that was a lie. I was in the apartment late in the morning. Everything was fine. The gas was working, so was the water.
I see.
When I caught him in that lie, he got madder than ever, made some more excuses. Then he started yelling and swearing at me right there on the sidewalk. Said the apartment just wasn't ready yet. I told him to go climb a tree. We signed the lease. We paid the rent. We were moving in anyway. Told the movers to go ahead, take in the furniture.
Well, what did Daniel say then?
Nothing. He just got real purple in the face, and he put his hand in his coat pocket, and he took out a gun, pointed it at me and Doris, and I had the baby in my arms. Imagine that.
Mm-hmm. He actually told you he'd shoot you if you tried to move in the apartment, is that right?
In so many words, yes, he did. He threatened the moving men, too. They tried to talk to him. He wouldn't listen. We all tried to talk to him. We didn't make any sense at all. I wasn't going to take any chances with the baby in my arms. Doris and I got in the car and drove away. So did the movers. They left with us. Can't say I blame them either.
Yes, ma'am.
That Daniels must be out of his mind. It's the only thing I can figure. A real nut.
Well, did either you or your husband have any arguments with him at all before this afternoon?
No, everything was fine. This afternoon was the second time I ever spoke to the man.
And he had no objections to your having children or pets in the apartment?
None at all. That's one of the first things my husband told Daniels when he went to look at the apartment. We had a baby and a canary. Daniels said it was all right with him. He didn't object at all.
I understand there's 6 apartments in the building, Miss Cameron, that right?
Yes, that's right. They're all vacant as far as I know. Daniels just bought the building a month ago. That's what he told my husband, anyway. He had the place redecorated, and the work was all done. The apartments are just sitting there. That's why I can't understand it. Why won't he let us move in?
Yes, ma'am.
We paid our money, signed the lease. If he gave us any kind of a good reason why we shouldn't move in, I could understand it. But to keep us out for no reason at all, to stand out there on the sidewalk and threaten to shoot us if we move in, me with a baby in my arms, I don't know. He must be crazy.
You say you were in the apartment this morning, Miss Cameron. Did you notice anything unusual about the place, anything out of the ordinary?
No, nothing.
And you say Daniels couldn't give any reason at all why you shouldn't move in?
Just one. It convinced me.
Yeah.
That gun.
Before we left Mrs. Cameron, we took her crime report and had her sign it, and then we drove back downtown to the squad room where Gene Bechtel and Lloyd Bond were waiting with the suspect, Edward Daniels. They'd already checked him through R&I. He had no previous criminal record. They gave us a .22 caliber H&R revolver along with 6 shells which had been found on the suspect at the time of his arrest. The gun had been loaded. Pawn shop records showed that the weapon had been purchased by the suspect and had been registered in his name. We had stenographer Eleanor Eastlack type up the crime report, and Ed and I took Daniels down the hall to the interrogation room. He was a small, thin man, blue eyes, gray hair.
Don't know what all the fuss is about. I own the building. I can keep people out if I want to.
Well, we saw the lease you signed with the Camerons. The other couple, too, they paid their rent. Why the sudden change of heart?
I don't think that's any of your business. It's a matter between me and the tenant.
It's our business when you threaten him with a gun, Daniels. Assault with a deadly weapon, that's a felony.
Didn't hurt the woman. Just wanted to scare her, that's all. Just a couple of farmers anyway. Never should have given him the lease in the first place. Lousy kid with him and that bird chirping all the time.
How'd you happen to have that gun with you this afternoon?
Didn't happen to have it. Carry it all the time. It's my business, isn't it? Registered down here.
Mean you got a permit to carry this gun?
Don't need a permit. It's registered, isn't it?
Who gave you the idea because the gun's registered you can carry it around your pocket?
Friend of mine. Nothing wrong with it, is there?
Having a gun registered is nothing more than keeping a permanent record of it. You can keep the gun in your home or in your office, but it doesn't give you the right to carry it around with you.
Oh? Well, why didn't they tell me that when I had it registered?
You were told, Mr. Daniels. You know that.
Well, I don't remember it.
Doesn't make much difference if you remember or not. Nobody has a permit to threaten people with a gun.
Told you I wasn't going to hurt her. She just kept arguing with me. I'm a sick man, you know. Thought she was going to hit me.
You mean while she was holding that baby in her arms? Now, come off it, Daniels. What's this thing all about?
Told you before. I think that's my business.
You signed a year's lease with the Camerons. You accepted the first and last month's rent. You took their money. You advised them they could move in this afternoon. When they try to move in, you meet them at the front door and threaten them with a gun. Now, what's it all about? None of this makes any sense.
Changed my mind. I'm not ready to rent them out yet.
Well, then why'd you sign that lease with the Camerons? How about it, Mr. Daniels? If there's something in that building you're trying to cover up, you might as well tell us. A couple of men out there now checking it.
You can go ahead and check. I don't care. They won't find anything. Got nothing to hide.
How long you lived here, Daniels?
18, 20 years. Why?
Where'd you live before you came here?
Ohio. Cleveland, Ohio.
You ever been arrested?
Yeah, a couple of traffic tickets. Cop said I went through a stop signal. I wasn't guilty, though. What's the point, anyway? What are you trying to get at? Trying to force me to let those people in that apartment?
I'm not trying to force you into anything, Daniels. Business about the lease is a civil matter. That's between you and the Camerons.
And what are you holding me here for?
We told you. You threatened that woman with a gun. She signed an ADW report.
What do you mean, ADW?
Assault with a deadly weapon. Now, that's a pretty serious charge, Daniels.
Didn't hurt the woman. Didn't even touch her.
Pointed the gun at her, didn't you?
Yeah.
The gun was loaded, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Capable of being fired?
Yeah, but I wasn't going to shoot her, I told you. Just wanted to scare her off, get her out of there. It's the truth. I wasn't going to shoot her. What do I have to do to convince you?
You don't have to convince us.
What do you mean? Who do I have to convince?
You got your choice, a judge or a jury. Ed and I took the suspect, Edward Daniels, down to the main jail where we booked him in on suspicion of 467 PC ADW. Before he was locked up, Daniels asked us if we would take the keys to his car and the keys to his apartment house to an Oliver Randall, an employee of his who acted as a janitor and general handyman at 2 other apartment houses Daniels owned. We told him we would. After we left the main jail, we checked with the office, and then we drove out to the location of the apartment house to interview the neighbors and deliver the keys to Daniels' handyman, Oliver Randall. Other than telling us that they considered Mr. Daniels a little eccentric, the neighbors were unable to give us any additional information that might help us in the prosecution. After we finished talking to the neighbors, we went across the street to the apartment house. There were lights burning in the upper rear apartment. We tried the bell, but there was no answer. From the set of keys Daniels had given us, we found the one that fit the door and let ourselves in. We heard somebody moving around on the floor above us. We went up and found a man there who identified himself as Oliver Randall. He appeared nervous and upset. There were papers and rags scattered over the floor of the room.
Oh, yeah, I was just cleaning up here. Mr. Daniels told me to be sure and clean these up, papers and junk.
I see. Well, here's some keys for you, Randall. Daniels asked to get them to you.
Oh, yeah, apartment house keys. Mr. Daniels was supposed to meet me here. He said 8 o'clock. I think that's what he said. I wonder where he is. You know where he is?
Yeah, he's in jail.
Oh, what's he doing in jail? Did he do something wrong?
He's had a complaint filed against him, assault with a deadly weapon.
What happened? He get mad at somebody? Mr. Daniels got an awful bad temper. When he gets mad at somebody, he doesn't forget it. I know. I worked for him.
How long have you worked for him, Randall?
I don't know. A long time. Maybe 5 years. I forget.
You say Daniels has a bad temper. Have you ever known him to be violent, Randall?
How's that?
Well, have you ever known him to be violent? I mean, have you ever known him to hurt anyone?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember. A lot of times he says he's going to do things. I work for him, you know. A lot of times he gets mad at me. He says I don't work fast enough or I don't do the right things. He always carries his gun, you know. Once he said he was going to shoot me, I was pretty scared.
You live with Mr. Daniels, do you?
No, I have a room downstairs in another apartment house he owns, a place over on South Hoover. It's a nice room. It's got a window in it.
You're on a regular salary. Is that the way you work?
Yeah, $15 a week. I get the room free, too. It's not bad.
You ever been arrested, Randall?
Me? No, I've never been arrested.
You ever been in the state hospital, any kind of an institution?
No, I was up at Camarillo for a couple of years. I didn't like it too much. I came down here to live with my sister. She's dead now. She died about 4 years ago. She's the one that got me this job, you know.
That's so?
Oh, yeah. This isn't a bad job at all. Jobs are pretty hard to get now. That's what Mr. Daniels says. Real tough to get a good job now. That's why I do what I'm told. I better get on fixing up this place.
Well, how'd all these rags and papers get here, Randall? The painters leave them behind?
I don't know. I guess so. I guess somebody left them here.
We understood the apartments were already cleaned up. They were ready to move into.
What's that?
I say we understood the apartments were all fixed up, that they were ready for the tenants to move right into.
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't know about that. Mr. Daniels takes care of renting the places. I just help him. I do what he tells me.
Joe?
Yeah?
You notice that smell? Seems to be stronger out in the hall.
Yeah, I think I do. How long's it been since the painters were working here, Randall? Do you know that?
Painters? I don't know. A couple days, I guess. What's the matter?
That's a pretty strong smell. Might be paint there, something like that. Don't you notice it?
Oh, yeah, I've been wondering about that. I noticed it when I came in. It might be from upstairs, the attic. Painters were working up there, too, I think.
Don't you think you ought to check it, see what it is?
Mr. Daniels didn't tell me to. I guess I better, though. Smells pretty strong. I guess I better see what it is.
Well, how do you get to the attic from here?
Down the end of the hall. There's a stairway there. It goes right up into the attic. I'll show you.
All right, fine.
Yeah, smells like gasoline or something.
All the apartments are vacant, is that right? No one living in the building at all?
Yeah, that's right. We go up the stairs here. Mr. Daniels had the whole place worked over. Nobody here at all right now. I guess he'll be moving in pretty soon. Going to be a lot of work. Got the other 2 apartment houses to take care of, and there's going to be this place. It's going to be a lot of work.
Daniels hire anyone else besides yourself to help out with the work, I mean?
No, I don't think so. Just me. I keep pretty busy. Here's the attic.
Yeah, this must be where it's coming from.
Yeah, it's strong enough to knock you over in it.
The light switch is over here. Just a minute.
Yeah, it's sure a mess. Papers, boxes, pile of old rags.
That 5-gallon can there on the floor.
Kerosene, huh?
Yeah, it's just about empty, too.
It's all spilled all over the floor. Mr. Daniels ain't going to like that. He's going to get mad.
You usually keep this stuff up here, do you, Randall?
No, I guess it was with the painter's stuff. Those cans and things on the table there, I guess it got knocked off and spilled. Spilled all over the place, didn't it?
Well, how come the painting crew didn't take their stuff with them when they left? All this equipment here. They're all finished with the job, aren't they?
I guess so. You'd have to ask Mr. Daniels about that. They're all finished on the inside. I know that. They have the outside to do, though. Maybe that's why they left their stuff.
Well, it's not a very safe way to leave it. Rags, papers, look here, kerosene spilled all over. You better get this place cleaned up first, don't you think, Randall?
Well, I don't know. I sure wish Mr. Daniels was here. You won't let him know, will you?
What do you mean, let him know what?
Don't tell him I'll let you see the attic, huh?
9:35 p.m. Ed and I left the handyman, Oliver Randall, at his apartment house, went outside and got in the car. Neither one of us could find any explanation for it, but we both had a hunch there was something wrong with the setup. We drove to a neighborhood service station, called the office, and told them that we were going to stake the apartment house. We drove back and found a place to park where we could keep the building under surveillance without being seen. We waited. 10 p.m., 10:30, 11 o'clock. At a few minutes past 11, we saw Randall come out of the front door of the apartment, get in a blue sedan, and drive off. We followed him to an apartment building on West Pico and saw him enter a rear door. We waited. At 12:15 a.m., Ed got to a phone, called Captain Bernard at the business office, and notified him of our location. At 12:45 a.m., 2 men arrived to relieve us, and we briefed them on the facts. We drove back to the office, made out a 15.7 to Captain Lorman, and signed out. At 4 o'clock the next afternoon, we reported back in for work. We checked the book and found a message that the suspect, Edward Daniels, had been released from jail that morning on a writ, bail $2,500. The writ was returnable Thursday, May 10th. There was also a message in the book for us to contact Daniels' attorney, Richard Tiernan. Ed put in the call.
Yes, sir. Uh-huh. I see. What's that? Yeah, I know. All right, Mr. Tiernan. Yeah, thank you. Goodbye. You were right, Joe.
What do you mean?
Daniels' lawyer wanted to know how serious the charges are. He says Daniels is pretty upset. Seems he had some trouble lately. His insurance company.
Well, what's the matter? Did he have an accident?
The insurance company doesn't seem to think it was an accident. Happened 2 months ago at an apartment house over on South Union.
Yeah.
It burned down.
You are listening to Dragnet. Authentic stories of your police force in action.
Fatima, America's first largest-selling blended cigarette. Now, best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Prove it yourself today. Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And in Fatima, you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
To show our confidence in Fatima, we make this money-back guarantee to every king-size cigarette smoker.
Buy a pack of Fatimas. Enjoy Fatima quality, extra mildness, and superbly blended tobaccos.
If you're not convinced Fatima is better than the king-size cigarette you're now smoking, just return the pack and the unsmoked Fatimas before August 1st, 1952, and we'll give you your money back plus postage. Fatima, Box 37, New York 1.
Remember, because of its quality, its extra mildness, its better flavor and aroma, more smokers now insist on Fatima than ever before.
Insist on the best. Fatima, extra mild and soothing, plus the added protection of Fatima quality. Smoke Fatima. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Thursday, May 10th, 4:30 p.m. We contacted the fire department's arson squad to find out if the fire at Daniels' apartment house on South Union Avenue 2 months before was under investigation. After checking back, they told us investigators from the arson squad had found a large amount of kerosene to be present in some of the burned timbers found in the debris after the fire was put out. They said that Mr. Daniels had admitted after the fire that the apartment building had been recently redecorated and that kerosene, paint, and other inflammables had been stored in the attic of the building. Ed and I contacted the insurance adjuster handling the case, a Snyder Peebles, and he told us there wasn't any doubt in his mind that the fire at Daniels' apartment house 2 months before was of incendiary origin. But he said so far the investigators were unable to prove it. The one thing that seemed to puzzle him was if Daniels planned on burning down the building, why did he go to the trouble and expense of redecorating first? Well, as soon as it was dark, Ed and I drove out, relieved the men on stakeout at the apartment house on West Pico, where the handyman, Oliver Randall, had his room. They reported no unusual activity during the day. 7:32 p.m., Randall came out of the apartment house, got in a car, and drove off. We followed him.
If we got this Randall made right, it shouldn't be too long before we find out. Daniels is using him to work something out. Pretty sure we can count on that.
Yeah, maybe. I'll watch it, Ed. He's turning down Union.
Yeah.
He's pulling up ahead. Don't crowd him.
Mm-hmm. There's a good spot here. Shouldn't be able to see us.
All right, pull up in here.
All right.
That's fine. He's getting out of the car. He's going over to the house.
Down the driveway. He's going around back. He's out of sight now.
All right, let's go.
Still no lights in the place. Oh, yeah, there they go, in the basement.
All right, easy. Let's take it easy.
All right.
Yeah, I think I can see the back door from here. All right, come on, easy now.
Mm-hmm. What is it?
All right, easy with this door, Ed. Don't let it bang.
Uh-huh. Where now?
Sounds like somebody upstairs, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, come on, watch your step. Come on, next floor up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up in the attic. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, come on.
Uh-huh.
Through this door. Back in the corner, Ed.
I see him. All right, hold it, you. What's the matter?
There's a fire, Ed, over in the corner. I'll get it. Hold on to him.
Right.
Well, don't put it out.
You need any help, Joe? You getting it all right?
No, I'm getting it all right. Just a minute. There, I got it.
Okay. You want to get the lights?
I got them. All right, Randall, what's the story?
He told me to do it. He told me to come back tonight and burn the whole place down.
Who told you?
He said, Ollie, you go back to the place, to the attic, light a match, that's all, and then get out. Mr. Daniels, that's just what he said.
Daniels told you to do this?
He told me just light a fire and nobody'd know. He said there wasn't going to be any trouble. No trouble at all.
Well, it gives you the edge, doesn't it?
No trouble, he said.
Yeah, well, next time you see him, you can call him a liar. 8:50 p.m. After making sure that the place was secure and that there was no danger of fire from the recent arson attempt, Ed and I took the suspect, Oliver Randall, outside and put him in the car where we questioned him. He made no attempt to disguise the fact that he had been directed by his regular employer, Edward Daniels, to commit arson by setting fire to the attic of the apartment house. In addition, he told us that Daniels had threatened him with bodily harm if he refused to obey the order and set fire to the building.
He had this gun, you know, Mr. Daniels did. He always had it with him. I was scared of it, I don't mind telling you.
Uh-huh. Well, he threatened to kill you if you didn't do what he wanted, that it?
Yeah, I guess so. He used to get mad a lot of the time, and he had this gun. He always had the gun. He'd get mad at me and tell me he was going to shoot me. I'm afraid of guns.
How about the fire at the other apartment house, Ollie, the one over on South Union Avenue?
Yeah, that was a big fire.
Did you start that one?
Daniels told me there was nobody living there. He said nobody'd get hurt. Nobody did get hurt, did they?
Did you start the fire?
Yeah, I guess so. Yes, I did.
Mr. Daniels tell you to do it?
He said it was his building. He owned it. He could do anything with it he wanted to. I didn't want to do it. He told me I'd have to. He said he'd hurt me with that gun, and he said he'd fire me, too. I didn't want to lose my job.
You knew you were doing wrong, didn't you, Ollie?
Well, I guess I did, yeah. What could I do, though? I didn't want to lose my job. Good jobs aren't too easy to get nowadays. You know that.
Where's Mr. Daniels now, do you know?
You're not going to tell him what I told you, are you? He said not to say anything about it. He said nobody believed me anyway. Nobody. He said he'd tell everybody I was a liar. Said they'd believe him before they'd believe me.
Well, where's Daniels now?
If I tell you, you won't let him hurt me, will you?
No, we won't let him hurt you. You're going to have to help us out, though.
What do you want me to do?
I'd like to find out where Daniels is first.
He's in a movie over on Pico by his house. He's waiting for me.
You mean he's waiting for you in the show?
See, in the center section, 10 rows from the back. He's waiting for me now.
Well, how's it you're supposed to meet him there?
I don't know. He said if anybody wanted to know where we were tonight, this would prove we didn't start the fire. We were at the show. I was supposed to start the fire and then go to the show and meet him, 10 rows from the back, the center section.
You want to show us where this movie is, Ollie?
Yeah, okay. Mr. Daniels won't tell you anything. No, he's going to be mad. He won't tell you anything.
Well, that's where we need your help, Ollie.
What do you mean?
We'll let him tell you. 9:44 p.m. Ed and I, along with the suspect, Oliver Randall, drove to the movie house on West Pico. On the way, we explained to Randall what he was supposed to do. 9:55 p.m. We parked our car half a block from the movie house, bought 3 tickets, and went inside. The feature picture was still on. There wasn't much of a crowd. We sent Randall down the aisle ahead of us and watched him move into the 10th row and sit down next to somebody. Ed and I followed him down and found seats in the row directly behind him. We recognized the man sitting next to Randall as Edward Daniels.
Hello, Mr. Daniels. I did it just the way you told me up in the attic. It was okay.
Nobody saw you? You didn't have any trouble at all?
No, it was okay. I don't feel so good about it, though.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
I don't know. Maybe somebody might find out. Don't you think we'd get in trouble if they found out?
You just keep your mouth shut. I'll attend to that. Nobody's going to find out.
All right, Daniels, you mind coming outside? We'd like to talk to you.
What? What are you doing here?
Come on, we'll talk outside.
What's this all about?
We'll let you tell us.
All right, what do you want? You arresting me?
That's right, mister.
Why? What's it supposed to be this time?
Think you know arson, conspiracy. Caught Randall here, caught him right in the act. He told us the whole story.
What? Ollie? What story? What is this?
I told you I didn't want to do it, Mr. Daniels. I told you we'd get in trouble.
Fool. Stupid fool. Should have known better.
Yeah, you should have.
Just 2 questions for you, Daniels. Why'd you burn down your own property? Why'd you redecorate the buildings first?
I never forgot it. Told him when it happened, I wouldn't forget it as long as I lived.
What do you mean, forget what?
24 years ago, I was just starting out. A small store back in Ohio burned down. Real fire. Lousy insurance company, they wouldn't believe me. Had to sue. Lost the whole thing. Had to start all over again. I told him I'd never forget it. Told him I'd make him pay.
And you've been nursing this grudge for 24 years?
Why not? Why shouldn't I? I lost everything I had.
Well, why'd you redecorate the apartment houses if you planned to burn them down?
Simple. Gave me a good excuse. Could have all those things stored in the buildings. Paint, kerosene. Besides, you'd think I'd burn down the building right after I got done redecorating. Not a bad idea. Worked pretty good, didn't it?
Yeah, you're going to jail. You figure it.
The story you have just heard was true. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
On August 18th, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 86, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
And now, here's our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you, George Fenneman. Friends, comparisons are often very helpful in modern police work. Now, for instance, a suspect may be identified by comparing his M.O., or method of operation, with the known facts of a case. Comparisons are important to you in choosing your king-size cigarette. Compare Fatima for quality. You'll find Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection. Cools the smoke for your protection. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size. And you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality. Buy Fatima. I'm convinced that you'll agree Fatima is the best of all king-size cigarettes.
Edward John Daniels was tried and convicted of 2 counts of conspiracy and 1 count of arson and received the sentence as prescribed by law. Conspiracy is punishable by imprisonment in the state penitentiary for not more than 2 years. Arson is punishable by a prison term of not less than 1 nor more than 5 years. Daniel's accomplice, Oliver Randall, was examined by 3 psychiatrists appointed by the court and was found to be mentally incompetent. He was placed in a state hospital for the mentally deficient. The charge of assault with a deadly weapon against Edward Daniels. You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department. Technical advisors, Captain Jack Donahoe, Sergeant Marty Wynn, Sergeant Vance Brasher. Heard tonight were Barney Phillips and Vic Perrin. Script by Jim Moser. Music by Walter Schumann. Hal Gibney speaking.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all king-size cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles.
Now, it's Counter Spy on NBC.